sometimes pretend that it's something other than it is.
Yeah.
Because it's like, really, anytime I'm putting up the picture of me or some random shit, I'm like, here are my show dates. It's really, this isn't for the civilians that I hope come to the show. Yeah. It's also flexing at all the other comics, being
that's
like,
all it
oh,
feels
I get booked.
Look how many dates I put on this poster.
Yeah, look at all these bookings. You know, I'm gonna be at 4 breweries this month.
The best is when it's all open mics. I've seen that.
Oh yeah,
it's like I'm gonna be at Irish Rover, then I'm gonna be at Scruff.
That can't be real. I feel like I've seen that, and that has to be a joke on themselves, right?
I don't know.
I mean, you know,
unless they're hosting.
Comedy is such a serious business.
It's
you know,
serious.
in that way that you can never tell what like somebody's appropriate scale of irony. Because I mean, I appreciate the hustle thing in that there's so much that is like so unpleasant about comedy that I think that to make it through the first like 2 years of doing comedy, everybody has to sustain that like, that was a pretty good set. I'm about to be on fucking TV. Because like,
it only takes one set to get my big break.
Just to justify like,
as long as the right person's in the crowd.
Yeah, because the highs are so high and the lows are so low that I think that you get through like the first while being like, oh, it's about to happen.
Yeah.
You know? And
there's like a difference between hype and like hustle. You know what I mean? Where like you can grind and all that kind of stuff. And that's putting in work. But like just this hype, I mean, anybody can have that. You can build that out of nothing.
Yeah.
So.
And I look at it too as it's like, and it took me years to figure this out. And it was like learning the same lessons over and over again from like visual art stuff or doing short film stuff and comedy stuff and like learning. And I think it's like the love and the passion and the energy I have for like the craft and then the hustle and networking part, those are actually pretty separate buckets.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
and I think people mistake which bucket is which all the time or just think about it or you take this like holistic and it's like, I love doing comedy in that I like, you know, writing jokes and I like it when it goes good and I like meeting and hanging out with other people who care about like what is funny or what is not funny. And man, I hate sliding into people's DMs being like, hey man, you know,
what do I got? What's the process of getting on this show? And it's like, all right, you just read it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know. I'm the same way. Like, I don't know, like, what, I got to go sit at somebody's show that I don't know just to show that I'm hustling.
Sometimes, dude.
Like,
sometimes just showing up.
Yeah.
And then I've gotten messaged by them, like, the next day, and they're like, hey, if you ever want to do a set.
On the flip side of that, I feel like if I'm going to a show that I know I'm not going to do time at, I could have been at a mic where I know I'm at least going to do 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And actually gotten better. But then I understand that I'm not doing that side too. So.
It's the FaceTime and it's like it's the hang too.
So political.
So political.
Politics.
Hell yeah! Let's play our intro music and then we'll introduce our guests today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
I have one question.
Oh,
are you allowed to be around smoke? Should I not light a blunt today?
I did smoke.
Okay.
I did. So I had a whole crazy week.
You had a heart attack.
You had a heart attack?
Not exactly, but I thought I did.
Yeah.
The doctors told me that it pretty much was.
Oh wow.
Feeling wise, but it wasn't the like the heart was totally fine. It just felt like I was having one.
Oh shit!
You had like a panic attack.
So do you want to do intro music and then I can get into it?
Yeah, this sounds intro music worthy.
Yeah.
I should have had the thing paired before I.
Oh, it's okay, dude.
Yeah, I think it. Now whose phone's connected?
Is it my phone? My phone might be.
Can it be?
It's probably not my phone, dude.
Not my phone.
God damn it, Laura.
Recreational outrage.
There we go. That worked. Wow, what a mess. It was my phone all along. Okay. Welcome to
Recreational Outrage.
Yeah, dude, I was just thinking we need to we don't need to script it, but I feel like we do need some kind of way to start it off.
Yeah.
How about a high five? You did it to yourself.
I didn't know if you're gonna be
It's
able
a
to
radio play, man. Yeah.
That's such you were a single kid, right?
Yeah. No, I got 2 sisters.
Wow. What? How? I feel like that's right. Your sister used to watch the kids and all that.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So you had a heart attack, panic attack?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So what it was is I had an infection in my chest.
Yeah.
And the muscles
Oh,
were
shit.
all sore and inflamed. So when I went in, they were I went into the urgent care originally because I was like, no way I'm going to the hospital. And they were like, yeah, you've got chest pains, dude. Get the fuck to the ER. We don't have anything for you here.
The urgent care doesn't have a...
No, they were like...
Damn.
Yeah, they were like, we do stitches.
Yeah, they're like,
Sure.
got something stuck in my nose stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Which my brother did that once.
Yeah.
My brother stuck a piece of mulch up his nose.
Sick.
And we had to go to the doctor to get it out.
Good for him, dude.
Damn.
Everyone's got to do it
Damn.
once.
Yeah.
Now he's an engineer. He's definitely the most successful in the family.
You should have put some mulch up your nose, dude.
Yeah, that's the trick. No, so the ER, I end up going to the ER, and dude, those are sketchy rooms.
Of course.
Yeah.
Just in the waiting room, there's people soiling themselves and family members that clearly don't want to be with their...
And those are just the nurses.
Just a security guard with a post sticking out of his head, you know?
And I eventually get put in a room. They run all these tests and shit. They just did blood work and they did an x-ray. And they came in and they were like, well, you don't have a collapsed lung. You don't have a heart attack. We're just going to assume it's this infection thing. And I was like, okay,
Damn.
well, it sounds a lot better than the other options.
Yeah.
And then they slapped me with the bill and sent me on my way.
Fuck,
Did they give you any antibiotics?
They didn't give me anything, dude.
What?
I'm paying...
So they thought you had an infection in your chest, but didn't give you any antibiotics.
Yeah, they told me to take ibuprofen. That's what the healthcare system makes you want to do, huh? Vomit?
Yeah. What is ibuprofen?
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 Yeah.
Okay.
Am I saying it weird?
I think it's ibuprofen.
Ibuprofen.
You sounded like you've been watching Joe Rogan or something. You're about to take ivermectin.
That would have been crazy.
Iverproben? What's that? What is that?
It's an alpha brain thing.
Yeah. It's a chicken tranquilizer. All right. We have a great guest today. Very excited.
I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we all made it.
I'm glad we all made it. Yeah. Yeah.
Nick Holland is here. Do you prefer Nick or Kick?
Nick in real life.
Hell
Yeah.
Nick Holland.
Hell yeah.
Very
Yeah.
happy to
Thank
have
you guys
here.
for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy to have you here. All the way from Fort Collins, right? You live in
Yeah.
Fort
Yeah.
Collins?
Up in the fort.
Oh, yeah.
Nice, dude. I've been up there a few times. David really seems to have set up the best space. I mean, I really
he's
love...
got an incredible. That used to be. It was Hodie's Half Note, and that went out of business, right at the beginning of the pandemic. But Hodie's had that same open mic on Monday nights since 2010.
Oh, wow.
So that's the longest running room for open mic comedy. Back in the day, though, it used to be that it would be open mic till 9:30, and then a funk jam would start, and so all these musicians would just
teeter in,
show up for the dregs of the comedy night.
Oh,
and
the
be
last few comics have a bunch of deadheads.
Oh man, comedy sucks.
Yeah. That's the worst when you someone stumbles into the last of the open mic and this is what comedy is. This is I'm never coming back here again.
Yeah, you're it was way cooler a half hour ago. I swear to God.
Yeah.
I swear to God, most weeks.
Yeah.
And then they just noodle for an hour, and they're like, "This is so much cooler."
Yeah. Boo-doo, 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 boo-doo. You're all right, guys. All right. That's...
None of the people there have wives. I mean, pretty much.
Yeah. It was hey, you can come here on a Monday night if you haven't created a lot of other connections in your life. This this is your spot. Depending on like which drugs you like or what kind of feelings you start to feel, like 3 PBRs in, then you've selected, you sort into, you're more of a sad comedy night type. And,
It's like the Sorting Hat.
yeah. Yeah.
The sorting hat for sad guys.
Are you a comedian or
a
a
jazz player?
Well, and it is funny to have something that's all words and then no words. If it goes into all jam, they'd be like, "This is the problem with lyrics." you know?
Yeah.
It just never hits like a noodle does.
No.
Well, you get like, I'm sure, I don't know to what degree you guys have encountered this, but like every once in a while there's like the musician person that crosses over into the comedy space.
Yeah.
And I think by and large they find it to be much more brutal and sad.
Comedy,
Yeah, sure. because music, you can kind of have this thing where it's like people are allowed to have conversations during music,
right.
and the music is just happening and it's going on.
You
over.
can have fun with music.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to talk during a comedy
Whereas
show.
comedy, it's like I need everyone's attention in here right now.
And people are way more supportive if you're like playing a keyboard. If you mess up, they're just like, "It's all right.
Oh yeah,
we're with you."
It's because
you
music
can sing like
is
Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even need to be understood.
Talking about mosquitoes and shit.
well, music is a secret language that is mostly math.
Yeah.
That you don't need to speak to be like,
right.
whoa, I felt that. Unfortunately, comedy, typically they can understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
and
and they'll be
that's
like,
where a lot of
"Yeah,
comedy
dude."
dies.
Yeah.
I mean, like, oh, this guy sucks.
Well, and
wonder.
it's all your original stuff. It's not like you can cover anybody's bits. You know what I mean? Like you can in music.
Some do.
Yeah.
Some do.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, I see what you mean. But even it's it is crazy to see a musician that you're a fan of and they'll cover some band that's Queen or something like that,
Right.
and that's the one the crowd loves.
Right.
As soon as it's one that some other band did, they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
But that does not.
Or if you're
it's
like,
not
here's
supposed to
my
exist.
favorite 10 minutes.
Yeah. Here's the end of I don't know. Someone's last special. I don't know. I lost track. But yeah, it is great. There's a mixed mic at Western Sky Tap House down here, and it's owned by a comic. So what he'll do is he'll do a music act. They get to do 2 songs, and then he'll do 4 comics. So then he'll do a music act. And one time I was just trying to work on material, and I was just talking about I grew up in around religion and stuff, and so I know about that, so I'm trying to work on material about it. And clearly these women weren't listening at all to what I was saying, because then they go up and they're like, this next song goes out to Dylan and all the other trash men, and it's like, what?
Wow.
And the song is just women are trash. I could find it probably, but it was hilarious. And then they did a solo, and this lady got all
They noodled.
serious. Yeah, she noodled, but her solo was bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. And she just did that for 30 seconds.
Well, it's that music, there's something, I mean, in both, there's something just impressive to getting up there and doing it. Mm-hmm. And then
It takes a vulnerability.
yeah,
For sure.
but there's a way more what was good music or what was bad music is left to way more subjective interpretation.
Yeah.
And I think fuels a degree of cognitive dissonance. Mm-hmm. Whereas comedy, it's if it was bad,
Yeah.
everybody feels it.
If they don't like you because of what you said, then they still don't like you when you get off the stage.
Yeah, because there's that. I always think that's such a funny difference. Is it's there are so many different sorts and styles and sensibilities in comedy right now, but both the audience, the doers, and the bookers are all hey, it's a comedy show. Whereas if I was you want to go to a music show, first follow-up would be what kind of music?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's a very and so comedy is this big
It's just-
open tent.
This big open tent, yeah, and everybody shows up being like, well, I think they mean, real comedy, the kind of comedy I like.
It's going to be whose line is it anyways
As
up there,
opposed to
right?
those other fake comedies.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. There's no like real subgenres of comedy really until you get into like the alt comedy and like, but that's the only things that comics really know. People who go to comedy shows don't think about that.
Yeah, and I mean,
Typically.
I bet, and I mean, there's definitely like some shows down here that seem like there's more like, oh, this is more of an alt sensibility show, but that's never even like in the billing.
Right.
You know, nobody'd be like, oh, which genre of comedy is this?
Yeah.
And, you know, at this point, I feel like there are like a lot of some wildly different genres of comedy.
Oh, for sure.
Some of which, you know, the fans of this sort of comedy will hate
Yeah.
this other sort of comedy.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
Oh, I feel like last night, so we had the roast battle.
Oh, yeah.
That we've been doing here in Denver. And I feel like the people that were there to see blood.
Oh yeah.
Like it was people fans of roasting.
Yeah.
And it was one of those where people were slamming chairs. People were pushing each other just because they were getting so like hyped in the crowd.
That's sick.
Hell yeah.
Last night was a little unruly.
I was in Springs, unfortunately. Hey, but Springs was cool.
I knew.
I would have liked to have been there.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. It was my first. So I quit nicotine
Okay.
since that, and I'm now in this little thingy, CBD,
Nice.
not nicotine.
Nice.
It was my first like long show without having like a vape.
Yeah.
This is my first
Sure.
podcast without a vape. I know.
Wow.
7
yeah.
years on vape.
Have you at least skateboarded today?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Was where was your quitting in to your chest
Exactly.
thing?
Yeah. Well, they actually, so when I was in the ER and all that stuff, I was like, look, I vape and I smoke a lot. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm worried. And they were like, yeah, that doesn't matter. And then they just kept going on. So like they didn't mention anything about it, but I just chose like,
Okay.
maybe I set that aside finally.
Yeah.
I honestly, day 3 was pretty sad. like quitting something that you've been doing that long. I mean, I was like,
Oh, it's the pattern, the habit, the ritual of it. Yeah,
I was in the throes.
I used to love cigarettes a lot.
Yeah.
I fortunately I like aged out of cigarettes like before vapes were quite as abundant as they were, because I was like, oh, I would have, if I was even like a couple of years younger, or it was just a little,
You would've
or
been
I'd
blowing some
smoked a
Joe.
couple years more,
Yeah.
then I would have. And then the vape thing, I feel like it's so tricky because it's like you can just do it inside,
Yeah.
and shit. And
That was
so-
the thing that killed me is I'd sit at comedy shows, at work, all of it. Like I just all day long.
Yeah.
Nobody would tell me no. I do it in restaurants and like waiters and waitresses don't even bother saying don't do that anymore.
And it's like, and so it was always like nicotine vape,
Yeah.
too. Because I mean, that's the thing is, I think it's like, yeah, it's crazy to think about like probably how much actual nicotine you were getting every day compared to like
Cigarettes.
analog smoker.
Yeah,
Right,
for sure.
Smoker, yeah. Because you didn't have to go outside and take breaks. You could just
Exactly.
fuck.
And I also never had to go long times without it. I mean, some people,
Right.
you know, like on an airplane, it's not like you can pull out a stove. Like you can't burn one down, but with the vape, I could put it under my shirt and just vape inside my shirt all I wanted. Yeah. So
How do you like the CBD? Is that
it's not that great. I just like having something there.
it's the habit, the pattern,
Mm-hmm. And I'm
Yeah.
going to be done with that in no
So-
time too.
So is a tobacco wrap with nicotine in it gonna make you relapse?
Do those have nicotine?
Yeah.
I probably won't.
All right.
No, honestly, I've been
Should
really
we even
good.
try
I
it?
also haven't drank.
You haven't drank
No.
all week.
Yeah. So I literally cut out caffeine, nicotine, THC, and alcohol all in one day.
Wow.
And just
So
like,
you're not drinking coffee anymore either?
no, I've only had white tea and like or herbal teas and stuff like
Wow.
that. Yeah.
Damn, dude.
That's why I had like a seltzer soda.
So what's your power ranking for relapsing though? You know, what's your daisy
I
chain
feel
of
like
work?
did-
coffee.
I had weed already.
Okay.
So
You didn't name that as one of the things that you were going to cut out. You said nicotine,
THC.
caffeine.
Oh, you did. So
say
you did
THC.
cut it out for a while.
yeah, I did 4 days. Guys, 4 days?
Yeah.
You get so high.
Yeah.
If you don't smoke for 4 days. That high was worth not smoking for 4 days.
Dude, try 2 weeks. You're fine. You might not come back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's
I
one of those
was
things, like if you take a break, too long of a break from weed, too long of a break, but like if you don't smoke long enough and then you smoke again, I know some people who are like, I'm just not going to smoke anymore.
Oh,
That
for sure. It
that
was
awful.
it was almost terrifying.
Yeah.
I felt dumb. I was like, why did I smoke that much?
Damn.
And it was only 2 dabs.
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
something like
Only 2 dabs.
Only 2 dabs.
but that's what I would do, before going like to
Routinely,
put my
yeah.
socks
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like so that was
Dabs was
awesome.
another thing that I like almost in my like, because it wasn't until like right at the end of college and some younger guys I worked with were into dabs.
And you're like, what is this
And I
crackhead
like,
doing?
yeah,
to
I was
weed?
like, this is some crazy crackhead shit, but I'll give it the old college try. And I did, and I was like 3 blocks away from my house, and I got lost for a half hour. And the guys, like a couple years younger than me, who were like, oh yeah, this is the future of getting high, man. And they were off to like go hit the bars after, and I was like, no, that's it's not. It's not what this is for, man.
that wasn't fun.
Yeah, it was freaky. It was
Yeah.
freaky.
It's like especially when they first came out, because I had already been smoking for a while when dabs first came around, and I do remember a time just like this guy giving me a dab, and just being like, I feel like it's the first time I ever got high again. Like I don't want to drive. This is fucking.
Oh, that's how it was last night.
And
for
they used
sure.
to be like black. I knew
Yeah, yeah.
I knew a guy who would go up to the mountains and make his own hash in the fucking river and shit like that. It's like,
What?
dude, yeah,
In the river?
It was not good.
River hash.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a little THC dash Giardia, you know?
And fucking butane. He made it with
Yeah.
butane, so it was,
Oh, yeah.
tasted awful. And it was just black, and we were
Yeah.
just smoking it.
I know. Yeah, this was before, like, you could just go, everybody was just buying concentrates and
Yeah.
all the wax and stuff. And I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, when you see the rig, I remember too, like a buddy, like, a buddy's landlord was like this old hippie guy, and we were hanging out in this like backyard area, and the guy came out, one of our other friends broke out his dab rig, and it made this dude who had these stories about, like smoking coke in a McDonald's bathroom and stuff.
He was
just
the,
being like, I don't know if that's, I don't know if I'm really comfortable with.
He was Aqualung that Jethro Tull wrote about, like the ultimate smoke hippie.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like I get it. It's some scary, powerful marijuana.
Yeah.
Kicked it to the next. I actually had I drank like a seltzer with 20 milligrams of CBD, and I've always just kind of assumed that like CBD was like fake and maybe mostly for dogs.
Yeah.
It's like stevia or something like that.
I was like, all right, whatever. Like, oh yeah, you give me this drink, and you're like, hey, it's gonna make you feel calm and mellow. And it's like, that's a pretty good way to load it in. And then, and I think I've had, a little bit like, the edibles. They're like, 5 milligrams CBD in here too. But, and then so I had this seltzer, and it had like 20 milligrams, and I was like, actually like mellowed out.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? This is real? This isn't just weed propaganda?
They've harnessed the power of a warm shower into a,
Right in a
into a
can.
soda.
And it tasted medicine-y as well, So I was like,
There's these,
you
like Canna Pops or something. I don't know what they were, but when I first had a medical card, I remember I bought like 125 milligram THC pop, and I just drank it all.
back in the medicinal days, because one of my like roommates
Wow,
at the
that
time
sounds like a hip hop album.
had the med card.
Yeah.
And there was this one down in Fort Collins, and they sold this thing called a chai high.
Ooh.
And it was a bomber of chai that was infused with THC, but it just tasted like weed butter. And I remember it was like, and again, this was before like the ascendancy of dabs and everything, but I remember that it was like, this was in my like true smoking heyday. and I was so high that I could feel each of my individual teeth. You know, it was like a scary degree of
They
weird.
should
Like,
administer that at the dentist.
I don't even like that.
yeah, no, it was like I was like, this is too much.
I can remember like in my early smoking days, just like getting high and lying in my bed and like moving all my feet and being like, fuck
Yeah.
But, like, imagine like trying to move all your teeth. Like,
It was, they were scary.
That's
you know,
crazy,
they
dude.
were all there in alert mode, and I was
Yeah.
like, I did not need to know. You know, I did not need to know.
Before we had access to weed, we could go into gas stations and get the K2 stuff.
Oh shit!
Yeah. So I did a lot of
Spice
that.
and stuff?
I'd roll it up in Bible paper.
That's
And then
awful.
smoke it underneath my bed sheet and just like
that's why you got an infection in
spin,
your chest.
That's the most. Where were you doing that?
That was Florida.
Florida. That's very Florida. I hate to like the
Me and my buddy
smoking
Derek.
fatties of spice with the Bible pages.
Yeah.
There's something just.
Derek said it was safe. I was like, all right, dude.
If you use the Bible, if you wrap it up in a Bible, then this can't help. We're going in armed with the Lord, you know?
How you were talking about seeing those things for the first time. I remember seeing the first vape.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's cooler than cigarettes. For sure. When I first saw that, I was like, everybody does cigarettes. A mechanical device, that's tight.
I liked the somehow like the texture of smoking and like
Yeah.
the heat, and so like the vape, it always just because
Seems cold.
It was like because they were definitely like around as I was on the tail end of my smoking, but it just didn't have that like you know, like
Well, now they all look like dildos, or like tiny little.
or like an eye
vibrators.
clicker, you know, it could be.
Oh, like a sound bar.
Yeah.
100%.
USB port.
Yeah.
I don't know why this just clicked in my mind because he has a very crippling fear of water. So I was just wondering how but isn't vape just like water?
It is, but I'm become
yeah.
like a water breather.
Oh, well,
So you're facing your
that's how you
fears
face
head
your
on.
fear, yeah.
I'm channeling it.
I heard you say that on some other podcast. I think that it came up on like Yikes or something.
Yeah.
And hydrophobia is really is the most common symptom of rabies. Actually,
Whoa.
yeah.
It is actually.
like
That's
it's
totally true. It's the first
what-
thing that kicks in.
What if that's the infection in your chest?
That's why people don't
We're gonna get out of here.
just keep an eye on them. You know.
Well, I like that you guys are like Dr. Housing me, where it's like it could be just a cold, but we're going to like the most niche possible explanation.
Well, because they used to like back in the olden days too. They would just throw people with rabies into bodies of water.
They would
Really?
freak out. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
like-
You can't drink
know that.
water, so dehydration is one of the first thing that kills.
But it's it's crazy because it's a rare thing where some people's like throats close off, or there are things where you can get sick and you'll like drink water and you'll throw up. But instead, it's like this entire nervous system, psychological, bodily, like terrible fear of water.
It's-
I guess I've never really known the side effects of rabies. I've just known
It's
that
how like
bad
the
for
animals die and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they get all fucking
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, they get crazy and I think that's I read a book on rabies many years ago. I was working at the vet library, vet teaching hospital library at the time, and so
Yeah.
rabies it was like, oh, cool, you know, there's a freaky.
Well,
But
I
yeah,
hope
I heard hydrophobia, and I was like, all right, that guy might have rabies, but I'll go down and I'll do the podcast. But
Which is kind of crazy because Kelsey has a fear of bats.
oh,
So if we told her that I have rabies, she'll
she
literally never talk to me
She might
again.
not do the podcast.
the perfect storm, yeah.
So, do you have like a favorite mortician?
A favorite the one the one in Colorado that was selling the parts just recently.
How did you find out about that?
I saw a news story, but a bunch of people sent me the news story. I don't know if you guys
lab breeding.
I don't know if you guys ever saw the Marty Doom sketches I made. It was what I did at the Dead Room Comedy,
Yeah.
but it was this character.
So you had done that character before the Dead Room?
I'd filmed. There's like 3 sketches up on my Instagram that are
I thought those were post. I thought those were after the. Oh, okay.
We'd actually filmed, and we'd only put up the first one, and I'd never done a dead room before, and a couple people were like, actually, while I was waiting around before it started, I think both Kelsey and Lane were like, yeah, sometimes these shows are fucking disgusting. And I was like, well, we already agreed to stay. Let's see. And then I was like, well, let's see what plays. And then I was like, oh, it's a comedy bar show, so like disgusting things play. And I was like, it's time to pull out my old. But yeah, I'd filmed those a couple weeks before.
Wow.
But so Marty Doom was this character I made, and he was a county coroner who was specifically running on the fact that he was going to be eating and fucking the corpses.
Because he cares about them.
Because it's like, well, his arguments were like that, like, he was like, my opponent believes it's a coroner's right to eat and fuck the bodies, whereas I understand it as merely a coroner's privilege to eat and fuck the bodies. And so he'd done that, and then a month or two later, a bunch of people sent me this news story somewhere in Colorado. I don't know, it might be Eastern Plains or somewhere, but it was, and it was a coroner that had really been caught for like illegally selling the pieces of the bodies.
What do you think do they say, like, why do you buy a body part?
I think it's like, well, so it's this great, it's like,
you practice tattooing on the arms.
Organ donation scams.
Scams.
And then, so like some organs will be bought from corpses that weren't technically actually like organ donors.
Yeah. Like organ harvesting, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So organ harvesting. And then way back in the day, and I know this is another creepy fact thing I know, but it was for research I was doing for the serial killer nerd roast, actually.
Okay.
They had just recently. And I was H.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer.
Okay.
And he was actually, he sold a lot of the skeletons of his victims to medical schools. And at like the turn of the century in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was like a shortage supply of both cadavers and medical skeletons for med schools. And so med schools would dispatch people to go rob graves to get the cadavers too. And there would be periods of time where they would like catch, and they would realize like, oh, these people were like specifically stealing the freshly buried corpses at the behest of this medical school. Yeah.
What was that? What was that like?
Dr. House would make the kids do some shit like that for sure.
Yeah, well, he's just whacked out on pain pills, and he's like, I need 3 bodies.
What was like the exhibit that was going around to museums? Was it just called Bodies?
Oh, Body Works.
Have you ever heard that those are like supposed like political prisoners, like from China and shit like that?
Really?
Yeah.
I was super freaked out by those. Sure, I'll take one. And
that's still, next level conspiracy.
Then I won't feel so lonely.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I remember when that came to the Denver Natural History Museum as a kid. My family went down to see it. And I remember being like, you get there and you're like, oh, it's cool and it's crazy that they can do this, and like the gimmick of however they're like plasticizing or whatever these bodies. And then you get there and like some of them are like, playing tennis or this or that, and you're like, oh, actually, it's really fucked up that these are real dead people.
Yeah.
As cool of a gimmick, or that science can do this now, and then you're like,
that's their insides.
I heard this journalist say that like there's some thought that they're like political prisoners and like maybe Uyghur Muslims.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess you gotta. Yeah. I mean,
you gotta use what you have.
Well, and I mean, even that too. It's like even if they aren't, it's like
make
it's
lemons
this
out of
thing where
lemonade,
you're like, I would like to donate my body to science. And it's like, check it out. We made it look like this guy's ripping a sick air guitar solo. You
Taking
know?
a shit.
Look, you can watch the poop coming right out of this guy's butthole, and we made these parts transparent. Switch them out with some plastic tubing. And he's just
do like goofy bits though, like stepping on a shovel and it hitting him in the
now that I would donate my body to physical comedy. You know,
it's like the Three Stooges like parody exhibit of that, and they all do like pie faces in each other and shit like that.
Oh yeah, a dream sketch that I've wanted to like film. I had the idea years ago, but it's like you'd need like a huge budget. But it's the idea of like
or a lot of Muslim Uyghurs.
The Three Stooges doing like an NSA wiretap or something, like breaking into somebody's house and like
they're like accidentally all wiretapping
but they're
each
like,
other.
one of them, like falls through the wall or, steps through. You'd need like a big destructive budget. But applying Three Stooges into like imagine, again, just terrible news stories, but from
Home Alone security.
2020 when they like, when the like coroner's offices and mortuaries were like overflowing in New York and they had freezer trucks. Now imagine applying the Three Stooges. They need work. They were doing under the table situations, so they can't just get the unemployment that everybody's getting. So they're looking for any work they can, and they're like, man, you gotta turn some of these bodies.
The bodies are stacking high.
Just wheeling across. They'd be using the stiff arm to like. Poke each other in the eyes. It's just the
stop
hijinks.
A bus and the arm goes off and all that kind of shit. Oh yeah.
Yeah, just the hijinks at play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like how did Rob Zombie not sign up for a bunch of body parts and just make a new horror film or something like that? They could have been made into art.
Maybe he has.
Could have been art.
How do you know he hasn't?
That's
Yeah,
so
there's
true.
like he made that Wu-Tang album they made a single pressing of and auctioned off to that Martin Shkreli guy.
Yeah.
And Rob Zombie made like an NFT that's just like a snuff film. There's one copy. Some other tech bro like owns it.
It opens with like that one scene from it's like the first episode of Game of Thrones where it's all the body parts laid out and all that shit, right?
Oh yeah, like
When
the
they
White
can't-
Walkers and shit.
But that never happens the whole rest of the show.
I know. That was actually, I got on the bus and off the bus of Game of Thrones like immediately because I remember I was living like in a house with a bunch of roommates. We all liked like acid and Salvador Dali and lots of like fucked up art. And you started it and it was like so creepy and some people are getting killed in the woods, right? And you're like, oh man, this show is going to be so cool and occult. And then it was just like a castle soap opera.
Yeah.
It was like, out. I got other terrifying things to see,
It's just poor people and rich people. And
Having incest, having incest dramas.
The books do have just as much incest, but all that, it's way weirder.
Well, I don't want to. I gotta tell you guys outright that this is a bit that I'm doing currently that I'm about to run on you because other people would hear me in the podcast and they'd be like, he does that on stage.
Yeah.
But I did write this bit about a very real book club that I'm in with some of my coworkers, and we've been reading a lot of classics and some challenging contemporary novels.
Okay.
And we've read like 10 books together over the last year.
Hell yeah.
And two of the most enduring themes we've found in our readings together have been the theme of the labyrinth and the theme of incest.
Yeah.
It's just what people are writing about.
It's in everything.
It does make me very excited to share the title of my forthcoming novel, Incest Labyrinth. As you might imagine, it's about a remarkably hot family that gets lost in a maze.
Yeah, stepmom's stuck in a maze.
Yeah. It happens. It's been happening since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Some of those cave paintings you can't see because they don't have a lot of words. They don't have a lot of like signifiers about who's what to who.
Well, the family tree part's erased, but that's what they were all on there for.
The family tree is like fucking. It's like this is a super pornographic family tree.
The roots are just all twisted together.
Yeah, dude, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like every culture, to be a real culture, you have religion, spoken language, some form of government, and probably incest.
It's one of the 5 pillars.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I have a lot of book clubs that come into the coffee shop because I work in a coffee shop.
Okay.
So it is kind of interesting to see what people are reading.
Yeah.
I'm reading Hitchhiker's Guide for like the 19th time. And
Nice.
It's so funny. It is literally the best. It's just, I literally will like, as Laura's trying to fall asleep, like go up and down laughing because of how silly so much of it is.
Never read
And it still hits after all the. I've actually never read it either.
Yeah. No, the way that he writes in such a creative, negative way while making fun of society in a sci-fi made up way. Because it's like sci-fi, but in the sense that like the ship that they go in is run off of improbability.
Right. Okay.
Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But that's how it works. Is the least likely thing to happen is for the ship to get to the other place. So as long as you find
so
the
that
formula,
works there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the formula wasn't able to be figured out, but a janitor had walked in, and as he was mopping the floor, his butt wiped parts of the formula off of the checkboard, and then the scientists came in the next day, and they're like, "Oh my god, it makes sense."
That's
and like
great.
that, like those, the whole reason the Earth. Like, yeah, no, I don't want to spoil. Like, it's so funny. It's like making fun of government in weird ways. Cause like in the beginning, the guy's house is being bulldozed down. And then by the end of the first chapter, the entire earth has been blown away for the same reason of just making a highway through the universe, which is why his house was being torn down as a highway was being built. It's so funny.
Did you just give us the ending?
No, that's the first
That's the
chapter.
beginning.
Oh, okay.
That's
Damn.
like 3 pages in.
So how many times have you read it?
Like 19, 20 times.
19 times.
It's
When was the
so
first time
funny.
you read it?
Probably like middle school.
Okay. So it just like imprinted on you.
Yeah, and I think once a year,
your-
once every other year, or something like that, I try to reread it.
I have 2 books of all of the Monty Python Flying Circus scripts.
Yeah.
Just like
What?
every episode, just in script form. And, you know, and that's something that is like similarly is just like was such a early instance of comedy
Yeah.
for me. Like
That's still,
you know,
I mean,
those
The Holy Grail
things
might
that-
be my favorite movie.
the things that like taught you comedy. And so I can like, you know, and yeah, so sometimes I'll just sit and read those books in bed because I'm like reliving the episode in my head.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
it's a weird mood though. Like,
Yeah.
like, cause there are some things,
Well, it's very dry.
yeah.
All of that type of humor is. It's very just blanketly said. You know, it's not like over exaggerate, I guess. I don't know. So like the fact that you're reading it in script is that's pretty wild.
Well, I like thinking about, you know, it's like because then I mean, comedy is maybe one of those like the purest versions of it because what's funny is still funny. Yeah. But when you pay attention to anything long enough, I feel like you like wind up deconstructing it and trying to pull it apart, and so much shit loses its magic. You know, like fortunately I've never been able to like understand music theory, and I'm like, oh, it spared me from learning music and thinking about music too much.
Yeah.
And then ruining
it.
music for
Yeah.
myself, you know. And I think
fun of it.
comedy is like survives better than maybe looking at acting or a movie or something and thinking about like what are all of the pieces that went into making this. Comedy is something I can both like think about in a very dry, logical way, and is still funny when it's funny. And so I got those books. I wanted to see the scripts of those because it was, again, it's like, oh, this is the shit that like taught me comedy on some level. So what does it look like on the page?
Right. How did they write it?
Yeah. Pulling that across.
It's like when you see those like lyric videos, like when they break down someone who has like this crazy like 48 bars and they like,
when it does the rhymes too, like
and
the
it's like-
MF Doom rhyme analysis videos.
and it's like, oh, I didn't even realize not only is he rhyming the last word, he's also rhyming each like second syllable, and then he's got like this
and
weird,
the sound and staccato of the lines doubles in.
Yeah.
And because you look at shit like that and you're like, oh, this person is operating in multiple dimensions
A whole
and
nother level.
structures.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people are doing that with their jokes too, you know? And definitely like hip hop and writing in hip hop and seeing those kinds of videos has definitely shaped the way I try and write as well, you know?
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, I think there are a lot of, and there's obviously a lot of similarities between like writing hip hop, writing bars, and writing jokes, because it's set up punchline.
It's like
maybe a story with punchlines within it.
Well, and it has to have a rhythm to it. It has to have a speed. It has its own personality.
That cadence, you know, because I feel like every comedian, to both talk like, you know, on the famous scale and also like the local scenes, it's like every comedian who is really good and has entirely found like their own voice has a cadence. Yeah. And they understand, and it affects the amount of information and like what kind of images, but it also is like it's a reliable rhythm. Yeah. It's like laughing is dancing. Yeah. You know, and so the good artists communicate to anybody who's listening, like, hey, here is the like pace and rate, you know?
And how you were saying that there's these people that go from music to comedy. I know a guy that did that, and he specifically does, Jake to Pizza. I don't know if right?
I love Jake to Pizza,
Very specific rhythm, very his own cadence. He takes his time, and he's very slow, and he allows and it's because he explained that, like, he's like, I know my instrument. Like, I know how to play this instrument, because if I tried to tell a story, nobody's listening. Yeah. Like, nobody listens past 3 sentences with me. So I have to do quick setup, punchline. And, like, that's his instrument. And that's how... And it is crazy to, like, going into it with a musical brain where he was like, I know what I sound like. And I know what the puzzle piece I am in the comedy scene because of how I am and how I perform. And like knowing your voice, it's like what sets you apart from any other open micer. Yeah. You know? It's like what gives you a brand.
Well, and I was even saying that maybe a little before we started, you know, but it's like the crazy thing about stand up is it is so simple. Right? I mean, it's the original definition that the Greeks had for theater, because it's a person in a space with an audience. Yeah. And so it is the most intrinsically simple. It doesn't have any of the trickery or framing that like plays or movies do. Yeah, all of this is so and so it can be done so basically, so simply, and it makes it such an accessible form too, but it also within that establishes its own expectations and conventions or rule sets. Again, like people defining their own version of comedy and what the rules or the structures they expect are. And so you watch and it's like there's a million ways to be good at it and a billion ways to fucking suck at it. Yeah. You know, is within. But you watch people do things and succeed in a way where it's like, oh, I had never even thought about stand-up in that dimension that is that person's primary force at play, you know?
Could you imagine like Mitch Hedberg at the Apollo? Like used to like high energy, like all these crazy acts with like all this performance. And if Mitch just stood there.
Right. You know, and like turning his back to the audience.
Yeah. What people determine as comedy is so subjective. It is kind of wild.
And it's crazy too, because you're making, you know, because I also feel like
Jeff Dunham is comedy technically.
He is, and it's not my thing. But then you look at it and it's like, oh, like figuring out how to like sell a puppet on stage and do that with conviction that doesn't cause people to like immediately shut down. Because that's even the thing about the difference between good shows or bad shows, or why most open mics start out stagnant, warm up for a period of time, and then flare out. Is it's like it's the perfect synthesis of things where people are going to give you that much credit. And it's funny about stand-up, because in stand-up, it's a fucking fight. Yeah. Which makes it weird and different from music, from a play, from a movie, from a dance show or something, you know, where it's like somebody's going to see ballet or the opera, and they are like investing a lot in the credibility of it. And I think that's why the rooms that have been made and tailored for comedy, like Comedy Fort and Comedy Works and, you know, the Underground and like some of those, you know, very well produced that have the, that people within the scene put like emphasis on.
Right.
Coffee joint.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember, what did I get? I got some kind of drink that I never saw it. They had some very different bottled drinks.
Yeah.
I remember finding like a gem, you know? But it's like that every choice has been directed to the people concentrating on the comedy, and they take it so much more seriously because they've entered into it. And I think about it too. It's like, how much by the time a couple that goes out to see a comedy show at the Comedy Fort and had like, you know, a fancy dinner downtown with a couple drinks at dinner, and then came and has had a couple more drinks at the club, and it's like, parking, you know, it's like, oh, like most of these people are in like a couple $100 into their evening by the time they see the comedy show.
This is their night.
Yeah. And that's crazy. And then you also get, you know, free bar show or well-lit brewery or like nobody told me there was going to be a fucking comedy show here, you know?
At that open mic I've been running, I still have, and last week they were a little bit better, but like these same regulars who have literally been at every one. Like I walk in at one point, they're like, I didn't know you were coming this week. I was like, well, I am.
Yeah, it's a weekly. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I want to do a sketch of a couple that just moved to Denver, and every night they go out, they happen to run into an open mic.
Into another open
and like
mic.
they try to go across town on one night. The first night they're like, "Oh, open mic comedy. Let's check it out.
Hey,
Why not?"
sweetie, this could be fun.
And
they like even they start the first one, and then it's just
and then the comedian on stage says something bad that like triggers one of them, and then they see them at the very next one. They're like, "Fuck."
yeah. That could
That's
even
that
just
guy
be that could even just be like a immersive wrapper to like a product tape you make of like, you know, Denver comedy's most shocking moments 3. And then it starts with a couple, and then it's just like a set of one of the, where you're just like, man, you know?
It's just VG.
And like, there's mics that like are on the same street on the same night. So you could literally, let's not go to that one. Let's go to this other place. Maybe it'll be different. And then boom, just happening all over.
Just dropping a bomb. Yeah.
Last week at my open mic, and it's funny because I heard from another comic that there was booing from the comic section at Comedy Works New Talent Night last week.
Wow.
And the reason why is because there's this guy at my mic, and he went like second to last, and it was really bad. And he had this really awful rape joke.
Oh no!
And there was only like 3 people left in the bar, and it was like all women, and it was like
not the time.
it was not good. And then
Probably wasn't the joke.
it was
No, I mean it was the joke. It wasn't the bet. Like the joke wasn't great.
The joke wasn't. It wasn't a good joke either. Like
There are some topics too where I'm like, at this point in this day and age, we all know that you're aiming at such a small moving target.
Right.
That there are just some things where it's like, even if you thought of, you know, premises can just float into your head and be like, nobody needs. You don't need.
It's
I
almost
might write it down just for practice. But
just to know that I did. You know.
And when he got off the stage, I was like, because I'd never seen him before. I was just like, "Oh, are you new, man?" And he was like, "No." And then he came up to me afterwards, and he's like, "Do I come off as being new?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, kind of a little bit, but I still look at myself as being kind of new, you know."
Sure.
So I'm not like, I was just wondering so I could give you credit for going up for the first time, really. Like, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do Comedy Works again for the second time, New Talent Night." And I was like, I was like, you should definitely tell that rape joke. And one of our friends, who's actually the one who's booing him, I guess, told me that he was booing him specifically for his rape joke.
Wow.
I told him to do that one.
Hey.
because because it was so bad, and
Well, and you know, and there are like,
That is so funny.
I mean, it is one of those things where you see people like, as they decide to embark, or it's like, hey, this is the comedian I want. I mean, you know, because I'll even just think of a premise at, you know, in my house while I'm like doing the dishes, and I'll be like, that's going to be so fucking good.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah.
A lot of times it's not you know,
good,
it's
yeah.
important. That's important. And so it's just crazy. People are like, I found my voice.
Yeah.
And it's this joke where I say a few of the words,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
hey, like I know, like, and they'll even, you know, and they always, especially like the newer guys, they always like start out with that caveat.
Right.
Or we get a lot of it in Fort Collins where they're like, I know you aren't ready to hear this kind of thing, but.
It's too much for
And
you.
everybody's just like, oh, here we go. And then they drop it. I was like, well, that was.
It seems
What,
to be
we're
like-
not all a bunch of fans of sexual harassment in here?
And it seems like people will be like guys like that will be like, well, Doug Stanhope and Patrice O'Neill can joke. Well, it's like, yeah, but they're so far advanced and have been doing it for so long. Before they even get to a joke like that, they've already earned the audience's trust.
Right.
They know that they're funny.
Yeah.
And then maybe they can go to a little more touchy subjects.
And
You
it's
can't just do that.
crazy
Yeah.
the bell curve in stand-up
Yeah.
too, because it's like the people on TV who are saying shocking things, or even just the people who are like national status
Right.
shocking things. The amount of foreknowledge that people actually know who they are
Right.
is such a huge.
It's not just some random, bearded white guy with second to last at an open mic who 2 minutes in was like, let me tell you about rape. And like, okay.
And again, it's like what is even the. And I think too, sometimes even people, not necessarily those guys, but it's like sometimes people think that they have like the specific angle on it
Right.
or something. And I'm like, you know, I am another hairy white dude in Colorado comedy.
Yeah.
They
We
probably
all are.
don't need it from me.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
everybody who's got their 2 cents on something. It's like there's just like a long red list of, and while I think that
The thing about weaves,
right, and I think it sucks that like certainly when it's censorship, or when people are like, oh, we're moving the goalposts inward or inward, I think some of the times those conversations can be valid.
Sure.
But to me, on a
goalpost
super like practical level, it's like I just don't even want to. I'm already another squirrely hairy white man on this stage coming at him with my truths.
Stuff about fucking dead bodies.
And it's like, oh well, like I probably don't need to do that to our relationship over the course of this 5 minutes.
There's enough well-deserved probably assumptions about me just based on how I look like. You know what I mean? I don't need to give into it by saying as many slurs as I can on stage.
And I want to write into the jokes that like lean into that or confront that in some kind of interesting way, like what their subjective first impression of me is.
Yeah, if you can
what
make fun
my
of
life
their
is.
stereotypes.
My opener, every time I know that I want to give people, I say I look like I take notes on the Joe Rogan podcast, and that immediately people it always gets a big laugh. I'm like,
It
cool.
softens up, yeah.
And then yesterday I said I look like I'm always gathering the juggalos, and I thought,
Hell yeah. Yeah, I think about that like, and I think about that sometimes maybe even too much. That it's different, like which city I'm in, and I've found increasingly in Denver though that it's more actually what is the demographic of the. I got this joke about QAnon, and it's about the QR code people like creating the coronavirus to put it all on our phones, and I now, especially in Denver, I padded a little further in. And because I did it at some show, and I could just tell there was like a table of young women, and I could just tell that, from the introduction too of being in Fort Collins, which some people in Denver assume is like a literal fort, and so add fort to the name, and there's there's some red state points that have been like cranked up.
Yeah.
And so I have just seen that joke go sideways in Denver kind of quick when they're like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
Wait, this guy's from North Colorado.
Where was he on January 6th?
But actually at the Cloudy Eyed comedy show though, it went great.
Yeah.
And I knew because I was like, well, these are definitely weed consumers. And so they're going to remember back in the day when conspiracy theories could still be like kind of fun,
Right.
Yeah.
as opposed to like
Those are good days.
Oh man, it was like as of like 2015, basically, like the Trump run into the presidency.
conspiracy theories.
It was like they started tying them all together.
Yeah.
And the saddest part, as a fan of many conspiracies, in like when I was like, like in my teens
Yeah.
through my 20s, and
Like
then
the
it was
first
like,
time you hear Lady Gaga has a dick, and you're like, what?
what? And the Bush 9/11
Of course.
thing, Zeitgeist, the first your first
Oh,
pass
yeah.
through Zeitgeist,
That's on PBS.
wow,
Yeah.
and so like, and then they started stringing them all together,
All of them. It's
and
like
it
you
turns
believe
out that as soon as you line up 3 conspiracy theories,
Yeah.
they get racist.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
it was like, no, I'm not a racist. It was just kind of like, it was just a fun, romantic version of the world.
I just think it's odd that all the media companies are owned by like 3 people. I think.
Yeah, and that is crazy. And that is crazy no matter who they are.
Isn't
It's
it
like-
weird that they can vote unanimously to spy on us, but not to give us health
Isn't it weird how lame the internet turned out to be, and that it directly correlates to it like flattening into 5 websites
Yeah.
owned by 3 guys?
That's weird.
Isn't it weird how much sadder and angry we all
It's
are
almost like
when
they
like
planned it.
when like 20 years ago it's like, I'm not saying they planned it, I'm saying it would have been a great plan.
Worked out pretty good, even
Yeah.
if they didn't. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, like just how like a bunch more of the baby boomers got college educations than anybody in their family ever had, and they were like, whoa, look at all this upward mobility for this new generation of people. This is really cool. Wow, they had a lot of kids. All of a sudden, this kind of changes the consolidation numbers. What if we made school way more expensive? Like, ununderstandably way more expensive.
Yeah.
But we offered these people loans to just pay for it all.
Shit on them if they don't get it.
And it was
if
like-
they don't go, they're pretty much going to be the lowest member of society.
Yeah, what if we just sold? Do you guys remember like how and I grew up like in Boulder and Longmont, but I remember in middle school and high school there were like posters on the walls about how much more you made in your lifetime if you went to
wow.
college. There was all these campaigns. There was kind of this thing about like the kids who went to, it's called the Career Development Center, the CDC, was like in its own building. And so there wasn't like VOTEC or shop classes in my school district, but those kids were like busing to go other places. But now it's like, right when I got out of high school, I worked doing operations and maintenance stuff for like a while for the school district. Man, Plumber Nick would probably own a house, bunch more shit.
Yeah.
And so, it was a crazy. So that feels kind of like one of those true conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Oh.
But it isn't plugged into enough others or racist enough to be modern.
We could spin it.
I would say
We can make it racist somehow.
I mean, I grew up in a very I grew up in Southern Colorado, like very conservative family and stuff, and like learning and studying conspiracy theories is like something that like broke me out of the mold of being conservative thinking. You know what I
Sure,
mean? Like,
yeah.
It's the first time somebody shows you another way of looking
like,
at something.
That's like now, like, and I stopped paying attention. Like a lot of like whatever news channel it was, I just stopped paying attention to it. And then all of a sudden, like you said, in 2015, it's like, oh, if you think that maybe the government lied once, you're racist. It's like, no, like I just. Maybe
It's like, I know for sure they did a few times.
There's proof, but
And some of it was racist and some of it was not racist.
Maybe the government's racist. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
They could be.
They
could be.
It's very weird. But conspiracy theories.
They took a hit, man.
Yeah.
And, and there's some stuff where it's like, and because of like for the most part, I don't really trust any of the news people right now. And I know that there's a few there, and then there's other crazy lies flying around. And so it's like, and I just want to go back to the world where when I see a bunch of UFOs, I hope it's actual little green people that are going to come out. And that was so much more fun and enjoyable world than whatever kind of artificial intelligence drone, weather balloon, false flag to make us stop talking about those goddamn government documents,
Yeah, it is. I mean, I feel like there's no harm in just making random dots. I mean, that's what like watching The Wizard of Oz and putting it up with Dark Side of the Moon is. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's just finding,
what a classic, huh?
Yeah, and that's like a conspiracy theory, technically, right? Because like they didn't do that on purpose, right? Who knows? But it lines up perfectly. Yeah. So like just connecting
Who knows?
those dots.
Sometimes when you look at those rap songs and the guy's got like 3 rhymes in each line,
It reminds me of like art appreciation class when you like look at like a painting and you're like, well, this is beautiful because if you look at it from, it connects from this angle to this angle in a upward momentum. That means it's a positive view. Like it's got vantage points. It's got a focal point. It comes from here. Connecting those dots and finding meaning in nothing. That's art. Mm-hmm. So it does suck that that's gotten so.
It's so cool that's like, I'm so grateful for that as a critical tool that I received during my education and childhood. That you do spend time, and it's one of those things that like yields never-ending value, and being able to like talk, like thoughtfully about the things you care about and the things you watch is super cool.
Yeah. You do a lot of art yourself too, right?
I do. Yeah.
Dude, I like your stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, it's a really nice it's like a really nice counterpoint to writing and stand-up stuff. And I think that, and when I started like when I was really burnt out from performing. Yeah. And I'd been doing like plays and stand-up, kind of alternating.
So you did theater yourself?
I did, yeah. I did theater. I wound up studying it in college, which was fun, but a mistake, a hideous mistake. If I could go back and talk to my 18-year-old, actually really like my 21-year-old self when I made the decision, but I know he still wouldn't have listened.
Said, I saw those posters about how much money I'm going to make if I go to school.
He was like, everybody just told me it's college, man. And even pre the advent of dabs, that guy was too stoned to make a lot of critical decisions that were put in his lap.
It wasn't Trump University, right?
No, it was CSU. Yeah. So
okay,
state schools cranking them out.
Not a real scam. I went to state college too.
Yeah, no, I had a great time. I just like if anyone had actually told me in a way that I could have appreciated what the world would have been like, I would have picked something else.
Yeah.
I'd bopped around. I had like an English degree.
I took film, like photography. So like how to do it in a black room.
Hell yeah.
It was fun, but
hell yeah.
That was way too much money for nothing I'm ever going to use.
Didn't translate into life in the cool way it could have.
You can't even get film developed at like a CVS now. Like nobody does that.
I know my photographer friends, they send it off to like a studio in like Philadelphia or something. So it's crazy how few places in the country are now doing that. Mm-hmm. And but yeah, so I did theater in college, and I discovered stand-up in college kind of at that point in time. I did improv before any of those things because whose line is it anyway, baby, and
where the points don't matter.
And then but then I got a theater degree, and I was like 23 or something, and it was finally occurring to me that maybe getting a theater degree wasn't as like clever of a decision as I thought. And at the point too, and by the end, again, because I'd like thought about it and pulled it apart and been making it, just exhausted by it. So I didn't give a shit about theater anymore by the time. And it was like, and I've always been like kind of allergic to saving money. So I was like, what? Like I'm going to move to New York or LA and work struggling as a waiter? I was like, it doesn't actually sound like me, you know? And so I needed a creative and visual expression that wasn't at a place physically with other people on like a hard set schedule. It wasn't the same exhausting thing. And so I started doing art.
And you weren't very like that kind of artistic before? Like you hadn't practiced it?
Not really. No, I always doodled. Instead of actually learning or note taking through class, but just kind of like, you know,
on the edges of the papers,
because I was
like
a doofus, you know, like not like I never even took a lot of art classes or particularly excelled in art in school or anything. That was where I'd started doing like high school plays, and that was where I was like, oh, you know, I can do this thing in front of people, you know, and then. But yeah, so art was a nice reprieve from that. And then for a lot of my 20s, it was very like swinging, where I would work really hard at like, just car key parties over. But I was like, I would go back and forth in a very intense, exhausting way, from like pushing on stand-up as hard as I could for a little while, or going and doing some plays, or doing like short films or something.
Sticking on one track,
just like heavily. Running,
yeah,
and then get totally burnt out and exhausted by it, and then just stay home and smoke weed and make art for like several months of recovery.
Yeah.
And now as time has gone on and I've like mellowed out, it's like, stand up and art kind of just week to week kind of.
Well, they probably, even like how you were saying, it was like a retreat from the other. They both probably now are ways of allowing the brain to work on something else.
Yeah, and they help each other, because there's things like I think that art and music, I think, are rewarded by abstraction and obfuscation. Again, in that way we were talking about with no language, because it creates more opportunities for people to create a sympathetic attachment to it.
Totally.
And it's even like, it's like that Green Day song, the breakup song that they all play at weddings, because it sounds nice in kind of like a lovey way.
Yeah.
And so it's like people are understanding music on a more primordial gut way.
Yeah.
And I think visual art is the same thing, where you just make up your own inroad to it, if it's something you could even put words to. Stand-up and performance and writing are direct.
Yeah.
And
it's what you actually said.
Yeah, they have to interpret it correctly.
And it's clarity and precision.
It ruins the bit. It's not what you were saying.
And your least funny English teacher, your least fun English teacher, the old cranky one, was right, because it is clarity and precision.
Yeah.
It is saying as much as possible. It was interesting. You talked about the Jake to Pizza not telling stories because of his instrument thing. I think that's like a fundamental communication thing, where you watch, especially with open mic comedians, you watch all the time where they are giving too much context.
Oh,
They feel, everybody when they're starting, and then probably in the first year of comedy, everybody feels obligated to tell you where the joke came from, to tell you where, and it's like as you bore down and down into it, it becomes more and more clear exactly how little they need to know.
Yeah.
And it's merely whatever sets up the suspense for like the switch.
Yeah, their bits are like Brendan Fraser in The Whale. It's like all fat, like 90% fat. And I completely agree that like once you start to realize what's actually the funny thing about it, you can just get rid of everything else. I mean, I've had people do that. It was so stupid. I had a joke that was, my girlfriend asked if we could get a cat or a dog. And I said, fine, we can get a cat or a dog, but it has to be either an inside cat or an inside dog. And somebody was like, just fucking do dog, you idiot. Just do inside dog. That's funny. That's the inside job, inside dog joke. Like the fact that I had cat or dog so many times in the thing, they were just like, "That's terrible, dude. Do not do that."
We think about it. I think a lot of times it's like it's tough until you've been writing for a while or writing a lot of jokes and dismiss jokes, or like sometimes going back and like editing a joke that you'd like retired and just being like trying to look at it with fresh eyes. But so often we explain the origin of the joke too, like where the whole punchline, where the idea came from.
You almost give away the punchline before you've even gotten there because you explained so much. Yeah,
because people get ahead of you, you know, and really what you're trying to do is you're trying to teleport your thought into their head, so that it pops up. And like all of the best jokes have this kind of like this obviousness. You know,
it feels like you know where they're.
Fuck! Yeah. Like, how did I never see it like that?
It's like a good movie where you think you know where it's going, and then they somehow still pull off a twist, and you're like, fuck.
Do you ever find that if you're feeling creative, you're feeling like you want to write or something, but you can't like get it out? Do you ever find that if you step away from that, maybe draw or paint or whatever it is you do, that it helps kind of unclog that?
Yeah, you know, I think it's more like, it's like sometimes I'm moving ideas back and forth. Yeah. You know, because I have a funny image, or so a lot of times what I do mostly is I do carving. So I'm like carving into a rubber plate, and I
saw you post something about doing not carving, but
I did some wood burning too just recently. You know, and that's interesting because it's like because it's similar and different to the carving as well.
And markings.
But most of what you post is carving. That's crazy.
And so I carve it out, and then I put ink on it, and so like when there's words on them, I carve them in backwards, and that's why the words are in white. Yeah, because I'm like cutting them out. But so doing that again, it's
and that's a classic. I mean, that's like a Japanese that was started in Japan, right? Because you could make the same copy 100 times, and you could sell them, and then you would see the paint would start to wear away. So like the number of times that it was printed, it would like be less valuable. Yeah. But if something was printed only twice, like the Great Wave was one of those prints.
Yeah, it's a big series of that guy actually did like 100 plates that were all different views of that same mountain.
Exactly. And
it's the mountain that's super tiny in the wave. Yeah. There's like
then the colors in it are just the colors that were available, right? It was like the blues and the whites were what was easy.
And there's like a European printmaking tradition from like the 1400s, 1500s as well. So it's like a old. Picasso worked in it, and
I've been to some Picasso museums.
Cool, man. Yeah.
No, Picasso's rad because he worked with pottery too, and
that guy did it all. That guy is one of those insane
and Dali museums,
geniuses.
And like you were saying, Dali earlier, like that kind of like abstract, kind of weird shit. How it looks like something you understand, but it doesn't really make any sense. I love that.
And again, those just offer. It's like that. Those things are
surreal, right?
Evoking feeling, and they're doing it in a way that is a lot of times ineffable. Yeah. Something you actually can't. And because we come up with, surreal and absurd and all these things that are all just to comment on how strange it is.
Avant-garde.
So there's something about that you're looking at something, and I totally give the same attributes to music, where it's like I can just hear something and almost be in a psychoactive state. It just hits.
It's that are like what we are at our very core is music, and like you said, visual art. Just like it hits us in a way that we probably don't even understand.
Same thing with dance.
Yeah.
If you really let yourself just dance sometimes.
Well, I did for a little while too, actually. In between bouts of stand-up, I did clown.
Clown.
I did pure clown, and I did sketch with another clown, and we did sketches that were like pure visual comedy, and we only spoke in gibberish.
Oh,
and so that was another way to like
Abbott and Costello kind of.
Because I love like silent film comedy, like Buster Keaton specifically.
How you were saying that like using words is like the most simple, cut, clean, and dry version of expressing an idea. Not using words, and you can get laughs. That's a whole nother level
Well,
of difficult.
it's
in my
interesting because like words are our most ubiquitous and available and actually poorest tool, you know? Because it's like words, it's how we explain and list and communicate complex thoughts, ideas, processes. Most languages can be translated into other languages.
Yeah.
They exist to be this posterity of this thing that like just stays. And then words are so bad to actually cover like feelings or ideas or the deep down internal stuff that does come through in dance and art and music and these ways where you just like your reptile brain connects with the thing. And comedy or anything that is words is so like monkey brain, and we wind up like trapped and struggling because the more we talk, the longer we communicate, the more we're likely to run into all of these like really basic, strange, fundamental ways that you and I don't experience the world in quite the same way.
Yeah.
Because we were raised differently, or because our current circumstance, or because all the things that have informed us. And
because
so
the words mean different things to each other too.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing about like, to bring that back into stand-up and like the open mic versus showcases or those, particularly those like those showroom places, is it's like, open mic comedy, suicidal ideation will always do so much better because you're at a free show in a bar on a weeknight that started kind of early. Some of these people have thought about killing themselves before, you know? And then you get to the couple on a date at like some fancy,
with
like a more swank and a table, and they're X dollars
They're
in.
dressed up.
Those people are pretty sure they like their lives, you know, and they don't want some dirty guy to come in here and start talking about how he's really thinking about doing it this week, you know.
It is. There's a lot of suicide at open mics. That's true.
It's like, but it's like a crazy difference because it's like, and it's like
it's appropriate.
Yeah,
it matches, but it's like, oh yeah, these are different. You know, that's always it's an interesting thing too, because I think that like in open mics, it is possible too, where you can kind of get open mic tunnel vision. And I think by the time in my mid-20s, like the first time I like quit comedy, took some years off, I was like, all of my friends were comics. I only did comedy things. The rest of the world, the people at the grocery store just buying like groceries to feed and cook for themselves. It was like, what kind of mutants are these?
Yeah.
Like,
you see kids and you're like, I hope you're getting bits out of those. Like, you don't have those just
like
to repopulate, right?
The propagation of the species, huh? I've heard a couple bits about that one.
When you see like friends inviting you to things, you're like, well, could I get material out of a hike? I mean, will like will a mic or will a hike give me like some kind of bit? Maybe. All right, I'll try. Yeah, let's go.
There's this way, where you're analyzing and you're like, you know, in trying to build material and like trying on all the different hats of, because I feel like we wind up, you know, in finding your stage approximation of yourself, you wind up inadvertently like pivoting to so many like slightly different guys that are all a different caricature drawing of
who you think
the guy you are, you know? Yeah, I talk about it like, and it's great on a podcast because of how visual it is, you know? But it's like up here, there's like a floating orb up here to my right, and it's my own understanding of myself. You know, a lot of times I think that orb's actually on the left, but like my own understanding of myself, and I know like my tragic backstory and all of the like the mistakes and the triumphs and this and that, the things I was still deeply insecure about, whatever. And then on the floating orb to the right is like just what somebody like sees me. On stage, let alone, but at the grocery store, walking down the street, just like their assumptions of that guy over there. And then comedy, you're kind of trying to like
do like a Venn
smush the
diagram.
two. Yeah, you're trying to like in that
that's
Venn
why-
diagram where you're playing those things against each other, or you're confronting, or you're also kind of trying to do material that is like what the people expect from me, and want and are willing. And I think that coming back to comedy, and coming to comedy specifically having the other space of like the visual arts, where it's so much more rewarding to just be like as strange as possible and just go in that direction. It's like, so with comedy, then that makes me make a more accurate consideration of being like, well, how can I like cross the bridge to these people?
Where's the Venn diagram?
A lot of times for a lot of my bits and stuff, I'll even wear more neutral shirts.
Yeah.
Because like if I'm wearing this Hellraiser shirt or I got all this punk or metal, they're going to be like, oh, I get things about this guy. Yeah. Whereas if I'm wearing just like a plain colored t-shirt or even like a polo or something, it's like I can kind of spring a surprise on them a little bit.
That was like
more.
one of the first bits of advice I got from another comic, because I would always wear like band shirts or something and I remember someone pulled me aside. He was like, when you do like open mics, whatever, but when you do shows, just wear a regular shirt, because you go up there with certain shirts, like they already have all these things in their mind about you based on what shirt you have. And
absolutely,
they're too distracted by your shirt to even pay attention to what you're saying.
You know what I think is hilarious is when somebody is like not wearing a flannel, but they decide to do that. So I'm normally wearing a flannel. Or a girl will be like, well, I'm not wearing a romper, but this one time I was wearing a romper, and you guys know what rompers are like, right? They're like one of those things that go, and it's like, just don't do the bit if you're not wearing the thing.
And if you feel like the thing is dependent on you wearing but like whenever I'm about to like shave, or if it's been too long since I got a haircut, and then I like getting like a catch-up haircut, and I do like cycle through, and I'll be like, if I shave my mustache off, or if I shave down to just the mustache, are these going to hit different? Because you are like the visual impression of like, so me like in like a polo or something, it lets me do like my bits that are somewhat more like professorial or lectury in a way, where they're like this. But
you dress for the comedy you want to do, not the comedy you are supposed to do.
Well, it's like it's playing. It's that it's so many. And again, it's that thing about like the million different ways, where it's
like Brandon Patrick, right? He wears the suit.
Yeah.
And he described it on the podcast once as like, he's like in a video game, when he puts on the suit, he just feels like it increases his abilities. Like it makes him stronger.
That's
and
dope.
like, it probably does. You don't feel bad when you're wearing a fucking suit. That helps with confidence. It has to.
And and that's even an interesting psychological reveal, because then that's like that he's playing for like status, and that he's obviously like going into bars and places. He's obviously going to read as like somewhat like serious.
Yeah.
Because that's
why is he here?
Because that's the vibe you're going to give off. Like before you're even up on stage, people are going to like notice the guy in the suit and be like, "What? Does he work here? Is that a cop? Like, is the?"
It must be professional.
It is. I mean, and I definitely thought way too much about it for a while, where I was like, I got to look like a stoner because half of my jokes are about weed.
Sure. Well, and it's like, dressed as you are now, even without, I could guess that you're a stoner.
I am gonna cut the hair. So
cool.
Yeah.
That's like that's an interesting too. It's like an interesting dynamic change.
Yeah.
Because I love being able to like surprise people with some aspects of the material too.
Totally. No, and I want to abandon the jokes that I've been doing about the long hair.
In anticipation for a roast battle one time, I went and got a super clean shaven haircut and trim.
Hell yeah.
Trim and shit and shit.
Just to throw
just
off.
to hope that maybe it would throw them off.
Yeah.
I still lost.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, if I sign up for a roast battle anytime soon, it would be insane to just shave my hair or shave my beard and cut my hair.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, I haven't cut my hair in like 4 years.
Yeah, damn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you always wear it long?
Yeah. So
even
it would
like
be,
prior to 4 years?
nobody has seen it in Denver. Nobody's seen it short.
Dang.
So I think
that's
it would
like
be
a
fun.
double take thing too,
I would look like a whole different person.
You can probably get away with pretend like you're a different person until you go up. Maybe.
I'll change my stage name.
Yeah.
What did we come up with? It was like
John Evan or something like that. Evan
J.E.
John.
Fitz.
Evan John.
J.E. Fitz.
John Evan.
John Evan.
John Evan. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, something different. Well, because there's 1,900 fucking Evans in the scene.
Oh yeah.
And then
it's weird. Like you get like just generational pockets of names. Like I didn't grow up with a lot of. I had a couple buddies named Ryan growing up, but now I have like a coworker, somebody in the comedy scene, and another guy I know from around, all named Ryan.
It's to the point where.
And
you find he's all three. All three of those friends.
In your phone, you have to like mark
Ryan,
which one's from which one.
Yeah, I'll be telling a story to somebody else. And I'll be like, no, obviously work Ryan said that. It would be crazy if comedy Ryan said that. Why would we even be talking about
that? Yeah, and it's weird how many names, how you were saying, just get super popular. It's also in certain like aspects or certain things. You just like hear that pattern of a bunch of, like at my work, I have 19 Phils. Like there's there's a
19
bunch of
fills at a coffee shop.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's called
of
Fill Her Up, huh?
Fill her up. I barely know her. Dude, at the coffee shop today, we actually had a bunch of people come in Breaking Bad gear.
Oh yeah, they had the Breaking Bad liquor store.
They were right there. They were literally like
a liquor store signing.
Because I guess Jesse Pinkman. What are their real names?
Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston,
and Jesse Pinkman. We're still just Aaron.
I was just going down a nostalgic rabbit hole, and Jesse Pinkman is the bullied kid in the music video for "Thoughtless" by Korn.
Is he really?
What?
Yeah, he's like a young teen. There's like a teen getting beat up in a high school, and then he like develops, semi-magical Korn powers that are kind of just a Carrie ripoff, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
Intercut with the band singing.
Yeah.
And so, hey, it's a great song, but stylistically, it's kind of from their like. Stylistically, it's kind of from their biker era. I think Undertaker had gone biker gang a couple years earlier, and so Korn was like, I guess if the Undertaker did it, I guess we're all going biker gang.
That's when the Gravedigger was really big.
Yeah. Oh, that is true. Yeah. But yeah, I was like, that's Jesse fucking Pinkman.
That's crazy.
He's also in a early episode of the X-Files, where X-Files is doing a take on like kids filming each other doing like jackass stunts at the very beginning, and he's like the kid filming. Or
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
Well, fine.
No, do you believe?
I lied.
But I guess I guess they have their own
X-Files thing.
Tequila now.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, it would be difficult to sell a meth.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know. I guess a
total
tequila.
meth and more.
It's like, well, it's Southwest. We could do like a chip or a tequila. Or
This meth has been barreled for 3 years.
Yeah. We were talking about the people who came in your coffee shop.
They were all wearing the gear.
Yeah. But it reminded me of so I was in Colorado Springs for a show last night, and I was driving back, and there's an In-N-Out burger there, so I figured I'd go stop and eat. And,
Nice.
And
Animal style?
no, I didn't do that. I should have maybe. But a whole crew of people also in their uniforms that were clearly coming from a church. Probably 60 people came in.
Wow.
They probably had come from some kind of like event at their church or
sure.
something.
Yeah.
Fish Friday, dude.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. But no, I think
I'm a good Lutheran.
They're in Springs.
I'm not.
This is Springs, so they're probably Baptist. They probably don't give a fuck about that. But these kids, and it just reminded me of like, as someone who grew up a Christian, like why people hate us. These kids are fucking around, and I heard one of them go, "Don't worry, dude. That was just the gay test." And I was like, "Nobody's gonna say anything to these kids." Like,
it's crazy that it's crazy. Like you just think they wouldn't be saying gay test anymore.
Yeah.
It's like all the time. Like
you just said that out loud in public. That's crazy. Like loud too. Like
part of like a church group too. There should at least be like a
like they're like buttoned up close. Like no one said anything to him. I was like, oh yeah, this is why.
He was like, "Hey, do you want to go in and out?"
I don't even know
and
what
he's
they
like,
did. Probably.
No. And he's like, "Well, that was just the gay
grabbed
test."
the other kid's dick or something.
Oh yeah. What did so you grew up pretty Christian?
Yeah, definitely.
What was your team?
Baptist?
Baptist?
Yeah.
Cool. Down in the Springs area, or
Southern Colorado, it's like Pueblo, Penrose.
Okay.
My grandpa was a preacher, and then like by the time I came around, he was a worship leader. So,
wow.
Whoa, is that like a next level?
Now he opened the hymn book and would do this while everyone sang.
Damn.
Ooh, like the orchestrator.
That's
kind of cool.
drawing the Holy Spirit right down from the ceiling.
Yeah,
That's dope. That's
But
dope.
you talk about conspiracy theories. I'll tell you this too. My grandpa in like the 70s, he was still a preacher, and there was this guy that started going around to all the different churches named John Todd, and what he was telling people was that he was part of one of the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati, and that he had grown up practicing witchcraft and was
Wait,
involved.
the Illuminati has 13 bloodlines?
Yeah, don't get me on a huge tangent about it.
It was one of them Targaryen.
Yeah, Targaryen, Lannister, Potter. But
The Apollo 13 bloodline.
Potter.
but so this guy John Todd, he said like what he claimed was that he grew up in this witchy family, satanic family, and then he found Christ. What his mission was to go tell everybody that the Illuminati was putting satanic imagery and all the music, and when you play records backwards, I think this is where that all came from.
Okay, yeah.
And so he came to my grandpa's church, and he spoke to the congregation. And my grandpa, after he came, he convinced people that like the economy was going to crash and World War III was coming and stockpile. And so my grandpa took
Race war.
5 years of food, 5 years of ammo, exchanged all of his money for gold just about, and just moved his whole family and like half of his church congregation, because it split the church, to like some hippie commune in eastern Colorado, and lived out there, formed a new church for like, I don't know how long, 10 years or something.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
It was like Jonestown.
So it's
Yeah,
just-
that's
it's
like
just-
a very, that's
yeah.
crazy.
So it's in my family, you know what I mean?
Hey, that's good.
But
Yeah, and public speaking.
Yeah.
You know? And public speaking.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and I've definitely met other people in comedy whose parents were clergy.
Yeah.
It's like Nate Brown.
Okay.
His dad was a pastor. Caleb Sinan, the touring comic.
Yeah.
I did some sets with him last year when he came to the fort.
Torah?
And
Touring?
touring.
Oh. I think
And
it's
he had a bunch of material in his set about his dad being a pastor. So it's this interesting. I mean,
You ever see the Simpsons episode where the Mr. Lovejoy, right? That's the
Reverend Lovejoy.
Yeah, his daughter is like stealing.
Oh, and she dates Bart,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And she's like a bad girl.
Yeah.
Because preacher's daughters.
Yeah.
Well, and
have that rep.
and she knows how to manipulate, and she knows how to like trick and get people to show a face for one people, and then once the cool girls are away, it was like, oh hey Bart, and he's like, no, you just kicked me in the stomach, and she's like, let's go skateboarding, and he's like, oh, this does sound really cool, you know, like that kind of like knowing how to perform to each person and all that kind of stuff. It was in The Daughter. It was that's a good fucking episode.
Yeah.
And it leaves with her getting on a bicycle with another guy and Bart scrubbing the steps for her and being like, I'm not even going to do that good of a job. She's going to get in so much trouble.
That's a crazy. Now, yeah, it's interesting. I liked that detail you added, that it split the church community,
Yeah.
because
Even
a
like
thing
my
like
family
that,
too, yeah.
a thing like that would,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But it's an interesting to like think about, because that definitely happened over the last several years. And particularly, it was like, because particularly, you know, to go back to the part about like tying together all of it seemed like the whole QAnon thing really like sprung up from the coordination and synthesis of all these different rad and, as it turns out, semi-racist theories floating around on the internet. And then that they were able to kind of wrap that up, and then it seems like some people would be easy to pull out of it, or would have just shed like as soon as like post January the 6th and everything wasn't reset, just be like, what a crazy ride. And then there's also, it's like some of that, and I haven't even like, you know, I know there's like ocean of podcasts and a bunch of documentaries. I watched one of the documentaries, like the HBO one where the guy's trying to find Q, and it ends like right on the 6th. And you know, but it's like you go, oh fuck, some people got so far into that
Yeah.
that there's just no way those people are back yet.
Yeah.
Even just by a matter of like pride and also the functional investment some of these people almost certainly made
put
to
everything
prepare
into it.
for
Well,
the end.
I was talking
days.
about at the coffee shop, that couple, those two people that their whole families, I could overhear them, but their whole families had like completely ostracized them. And they were the only two that they could talk to each other because they believed everything. But
Oh man,
they had nobody else.
it's like
And they
it's so
bonded over
heartbreaking.
being like, they like connected over having nobody else.
Right, and those people are going to be. It's like there's only going to be a handful of crazy. I mean, depending on like whether Big Papa T, runs again or what. But like, it's very possible that we actually won't hear a great deal much about those people for the next like 3 to 5 years. Totally within the realm of possibility. And then, man, that whenever it pops back up to be like, oh, here's the 8% of the American population that has still believed that and only built their own little world.
Jr. is coming back.
Right,
Yeah.
still wait. I know,
Yeah.
and some of this shit too, because you just hear the details from outside, and I go, damn, they must have a dope ass mythology. Again, as a one time stoner appreciator of
course.
paranoid internet rabbit holes. I'm like, you mean they got some version of the story that good old cute little JFK plane crash Jr. That he's alive and ready to make a comeback for the Republicans. I'm just like, I don't have the
Democrat
time.
JFK Jr. Like,
Yeah, it's like I don't have the time. But wow, I bet it's a hell of a yarn.
Yeah.
I feel like the Republican ones are wild, but like the left used to have good ones. Like Tupac shit was very left. I felt like the right wasn't making conspiracy theories about Tupac. They didn't even care.
That wasn't political.
No.
That was just people. I think.
In general, yeah. But like the left used to be more conspiratorial, and now I feel like they're just like, I mean,
it's a weird
that's
like
for the right wing people.
It's very weird how it flipped.
it's a weird switch, and it's one of those things because like, do you guys know Richard Belzer?
Yeah.
He died just recently, and he was Munch on SVU. And he was a stand-up comic way before that in the 70s and 80s. It's weird because when you go back to do his sets, it's like a lot of times it's him like doing the Asian person voice. So there's some stuff. So just to say, like, Richard Belzer's sets have not necessarily aged great. It speaks to, it's like, oh yeah, comedy changes a lot over. But he wrote some conspiracy theory books.
Right.
But he was a very like lefty, New York intelligentsia, New Yorker.
Noam Chomsky is, I mean, he's very smart and is credentialed, but he talks about conspiracy theories.
Also, if you go back to like at the point of like Occupy Wall Street, talking about the 1%, that seemed like a conspiracy theory,
Yeah.
And now it just seems like, oh yeah, that's just everybody agrees.
Maybe
like,
that's it.
That's normal.
Is the left just names things, and then like the powerful left or the left that actually does anything, like just absorbs those things because it's like, oh yeah, well, we've been meaning to tell you about that. Like, you remember the Snowden NSA surveillance state thing, and that came out during the Obama years,
right?
And Obama like was like, we do. And you'll have to trust us about it. And we were like, well,
you're a good guy.
if Obama's cool with it, like,
cool.
I love those playlists, man.
I saw your playlist.
I love those playlists. Technically, that's surveillance, so he might have a point.
We did bomb a wedding, but
Hey,
have you heard JC's do something?
who hasn't wanted to?
Exactly. Yeah.
There's no ring like Obaming.
No.
Barack Obaming.
So yeah, it's like left things turn out to be largely true,
Right.
And at some point, oftentimes somebody on the left just turns around back to the rest of us and is like, "You're just going to have to deal with it." And then we're like, "Oh,
there's nothing like and this is a conspiracy theory too, but there's definitely I feel like an effort now to whenever someone on the left, a left person, starts talking about things that are actually going on, and just is trying to connect dots and
What's
show
actually going on?
You know what I mean? Like a Jimmy Dore type person, where he's just like, why can't we just make them vote on Medicaid, like you promised they would, like things like that. And then it's like they take that person and then combine like attachment to they think the Grammys is satanic. It's like, no, he's not even talking about that at all. Like he just wants them to vote on Medicaid. Like,
or they discover that he's a pervert.
Right.
You know? It's like it's a strange like I mean, I definitely feel I think most of us feel like at this point like a weird like powerlessness.
Oh yeah.
You know, the degree to which like not even to wade into because it's like I don't know enough.
Yeah.
But the Ukrainian war is so crazy expensive, and everybody that is just like the main establishment is so gung ho on it.
Yeah.
And I just can't even believe. And they already spent more money on it than like Vietnam.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and I was like pissed, and it wasn't a right thing. It wasn't a left thing. It was like I was pissed when Biden popped up in Kiev and nobody had shown up to the West Palestine train derailment.
That's fucked up.
And it was like, and there were liberal people being like, well, you know, those West Palestine, Ohio people are kind of Republicans. Like, and I like,
isn't it East Palestine?
Is it East
It's
Palestine?
East Palestine.
East Palestine. Okay.
I just thought it was,
you know,
when you said West,
West Palestine. West Palestine.
Whatever. That's where Jerusalem is.
I was talking about Israel.
That's what I really thought you were.
No. I did mean the chemicals in Ohio.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the chemicals in Ohio. But that's like such a fucked up thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and it's actually crazy to me.
Do you remember the railroad strike? That Biden put an end to?
Biden and AOC and the squad. And so it was just all these people. And it's like, well, actually, I can't really buy that like any of you are doing jack shit about any of it.
And hey, I would have
priorities.
I would have voted for Bernie if he was there.
Oh man,
I went to his rally when he was here.
I watched a video of him last night, man, and it kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say like he's a sellout or something, but it's like they asked him about the Ukrainian war, and he's like, "Oh, it's not really something that I'm too much involved in." It's like, what are you talking about? Like you probably should.
Like, well, I think you voted for it, man. I think you voted for it.
Even if you bring up like, it is possible this could be like World War III, and it's again, you're like, oh, you just don't care. Like, what are you, a Trumper? It's like, no, like I got kids. Like,
I know. It's this terrifying,
well, that's the whole reason we don't fuck with North Korea, right? A country that literally ruins and kills their own citizens, like starves them and all that. We're like, they have one nuclear weapon. We're not touching that. Why would we get involved? But then with Ukraine and Russia, I mean, we're definitely supporting Ukraine against the country that has the most nukes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not
And Putin just said that he's fucking getting rid of their treaty, their nuke treaty and stuff, and just suspending it. And
so it's like, it's just this crazy to be like.
I don't think it's crazy to be against war. That's what's wild is that.
That's kind of like.
Be lefty.
I feel like that's old school lefty. And then all of a sudden you're telling me I'm righty? You're telling me I'm righty? Because I dislike war? Like, that's
crazy.
And again, I understand there's a lot of things but for me too, it was like, man, it's crazy that nobody showed up at that chemical disaster, particularly ironic after that other big whiff on the railroads. And so it's weird. There's all this like,
and unfortunately the one person who did is the bad guy. You know what I mean? Like,
I know. What a slam dunk for him.
Yeah.
Show up with some water.
Yeah.
Show up with some water.
Is that what Trumpy did?
Yeah.
Trump showed up. Trump showed up like a day or two before Pete Buttigieg ever made it, and he had like a bunch of water, and he did a big photo op and a speech, and the people who voted for him,
the other N word,
he
said not that one, not the one you're thinking of. I'm talking about nuclear. Wow,
that's a good misdirect. I do kind of like that.
And not that it means they deserved a bunch of chemical explosions and all of their water tainted, but some of West Palestine, Ohio, was like, hey, we're okay with either one you want to say.
Yeah.
Man, hey, say whichever, man. You're safe here. You're safe here, dude.
Yeah.
You can do whatever set you want, man.
Yeah, it is sad though that it's gotten to the point where it's like oh, they don't need help. They voted for a certain person.
Right. It's like
come
that's
on.
a crazy justification to just like.
Yeah, doesn't make sense, and it's awful.
No, I do think with election stuff starting soon, like it is pretty exciting, but it also just sucks.
I hate that the election never ends now, though.
Yeah.
It's like there's been no break in which there wasn't. I feel like we used to get like maybe like a year and a half to 2 years off.
But now even like midterms are stressed so hardly. You're like, if you don't vote in the midterms, you're letting this country go to hell.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't worry, man. I think we're gonna make it to hell either way.
I think that's where
I trust both parties to finish taking us to hell.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it a conspiracy theory, but they're doing a pretty good job of working together at that.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, it might not be a conspiracy theory.
That's even the
But it
worst
would have
part.
been a great plan. Yeah. Like, if anybody planned this, they got to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah. I'm so glad it's accidental.
Yeah. I know. Take solace in the fact that, like, and I remember that was the funny, like, when I first, like, watched fucking Zeitgeist or something, and I was like, oh my God, 9/11, and I brought it up to my dad at some point, and he was just like, well, as somebody who's worked for several large corporations and bureaucracy, I just don't believe that any group of people can actually achieve something like that.
Yeah.
He's like, it's hard pressed for me to believe that any more than like 16 guys
It's giving them
pulled
too
that
much-
off.
Yeah.
too much credit.
Like,
It's like giving them too much credit.
So sometimes-
like they couldn't do that.
But
Yeah,
it's almost like the people that we see are so incompetent that it makes us believe that the people we don't see, who have been in power for probably since the 60s, 70s, 50s,
well,
40s.
that is like an interesting thing to look at how recent a lot of those things are. Like, I watched, like, there was a documentary about, like, FIFA. If you look at the consolidation of the movie and television industry, there are these couple moments, particularly around the 50s, 60s, 70s, like directly post World War II, where all of the rules changed, and the people who were changing the rules made a shit ton of money in the exchange, and they have only continued to.
Yeah.
And so it is a crazy, like, because FIFA was a much smaller organization. Now you look at, it's like every few years, young people on the internet realize that nepotism controls Hollywood and that, like, everybody who's in something is somebody's kid. But then if you look at the families or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, there was a time, basically, there was a window of time when that happened in like the 1920s and 1930s. The first people to recognize the money in this new film technology, well, it's like less than 20 years old, And then there was another wave in the 50s or 60s where they were defining the rule set. And so it was like, oh yeah, there were two opportunities where the gates were open.
Yeah.
And now that's everybody. Yeah. And it's crazy that, like, it happened, but it also is like almost when you look at it from that perspective, though, it almost is like it's less mysterious and evil and conspiracy theory, and it's just like, oh yeah, and if I ever had an opportunity to do that, I totally would.
Yeah, of course.
Like I don't know anyone who is better than taking an advantage.
Oh,
that
you're gonna
would
give me a chance to set up my children for generations?
Yeah,
No, thank you.
you could set up your family forever to come, and it's just as simple as like playing ball with
some other
small group of people, and it's like, I'd do that. Yeah. Easy.
Like the conspiracy of the prison industrial complex teaming up with hip hop label records.
Oh wow!
And
I haven't
literally
heard that one.
Yeah, so like
that's interesting.
Literally, there's like one or two people that have talked about it, and it was because it was this backdoor meeting that they all signed NDAs that they're not allowed to talk about, obviously. But like, it was like this meeting where they said, like, let's make it violent, let's talk about prison, let's amp up this.
Prodigy talks about, Prodigy. From He talks about that, about how his record labels wanted street shit. You know what I mean? Like,
have you guys seen CB9 with Chris Rock? It's a 90s movie, early, I don't know, maybe like 94 to 97 or something. CB9.
I love it that we've talked about all this conspiracy shit, and this is the first thing I've been like, let me fact check this one.
And Chris Rock, I think it's CB9 because it stands for Cell Block 9. Yeah. And Chris Rock is like, and his two friends take on gangster personas to become a rap group when they're just like young. They're just young dudes that love hip hop, and then they fulfill this gangster rap archetype. Yeah. But he stole his name from a real gangster in the neighborhood who gets out of prison. It's Charlie Murphy, is the gangster who like swears vengeance on him, and then so he's spending like most of the movie being stalked, and there's of course like a hip white stoner filmmaker who's making a documentary of them during this whole thing. Yeah. It's like, it's a great, but no, that's such an interesting, because you look at that and it's like, and when you first said the sentence, I was like, oh, how like nefarious. And then you go, oh no, that is something that did like perceptibly happen over the course of my childhood that did succeed in setting the perception of rap as an art form.
And then you want to get even crazier. Look at it now. It's Big Pharma. Papa Molly, all of the drugs, Percocet, Molly Percocet, all that kind of stuff.
Poor little Xan. And
that's the thing. I mean, when you look at those record labels, those are just owned by the 5 corporations that owned everything else. So.
BlackRock and that kind of stuff. Yeah. CB4.
CB4. Okay.
Totally.
Yeah, BlackRock. Did you know BlackRock owns like all of Neil Young's music?
They own most musicians. It's crazy. It's
really?
I'll pull it up. But they bought Pink Floyd.
Ugh.
It's just crazy, like, because you just, if you age long enough. Yeah, I guess you'll live long enough to just
sell your protest songs.
Yeah, not give a shit about any principles anymore. Yeah, and again, on a very like it's heartbreaking to see whenever you pull up this example or something, and it's like, oh yeah, if I was just like setting up me and mine in perpetuity.
That is part of it too, that when people talk about those kind of things, they never consider like, he's setting up his family for when he dies for forever. Yeah. But it's like, you also sold it to BlackRock.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because it's like, what does BlackRock even need to do with, Harvest or something?
I'm not really sure.
It's like, it's just a crazy.
I guess they can just use it they just own it. So they make money off it
off Spotify, huh?
Yeah.
They're just harvesting.
Well, he took it off Spotify, thank God.
Oh, that's right. I remember he took it off because Joe Rogan. Yeah. Oh man.
That's where he staked his flag.
That's BlackRock. Well, it's like there is this weird, and I think that's the funny, is the hypocrisy of people like doing these very like public stands. It's hard not to feel, again, and that is at the most conspiratorial. Yeah. Where it's like, it's hard not to feel that like, you made some of these M&Ms gay, and so you can just kill the earth now if you want to. I'm glad.
BlackRock owns Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, Sting, David Bowie, Aerosmith, Neil Young, Paul Simon, Motley Crue, the Beach Boys. I mean, it goes on. Bruno Mars, like. That's just the rock ones.
Wow.
Ariana Grande, they own all of their.
I mean, the good news is maybe less of our taxpayer dollars are going to bombs than we thought. They're like, no, we buy the music of your favorite artist and we monetize that on the streaming service to pay for the Sidewinder missile.
Oh, yeah,
the times are changing.
Times are changing. Times are a change.
Hell yeah! All right, do you want to? We might need to round this off.
Yeah,
it's hard to get people to listen much longer than 2 hours.
Yeah. Sure. I appreciate you guys having me. Yeah,
I bet you we didn't do a single thing that this guy wrote down.
Oh yeah, you got some questions or some drills?
I always do. Do you want to do them real fast?
Yeah, I'll do some rapid fire. I'll do some rapid fire questions.
Okay. Any collections?
Do
you own any collections?
Body parts?
Books. I have a large book collection.
Okay.
I have like a couple, like I have almost a collection of this anime, The Lone Wolf and Cub, that is all these like tiny series, and I'm like
Like a
3 volumes
manga?
shy.
Do you read them, or is it purely collecting?
Oh, I read them. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
a voracious reader.
Hell yeah.
And so yeah, and I
One of Dylan's top 5 favorite things to do.
I compulsively buy books,
Same.
use bookstores all the time, and I'm always reading 3 or 4 things and rotate. I'm still a toilet book guy,
Yeah.
so books
Hell
would
yeah.
be my.
I just got Rick Rubin's new book.
Oh,
I'm
cool!
excited to get into
Doesn't
that.
he look like
Some
Rick
beard
Rubin?
growing tips. Yeah, it's just like I just need the next stage. Yeah.
Nick, last time you've broken a bone?
Ooh. So I've been doing traditional jujitsu for the last year about.
Really?
And you gotta try new things, get that like learning curve pop.
But that's like a physical activity. That's,
Oh yeah, I do. My Tuesday nights are devoted to flopping and dropping, flipping and gripping. A lot of it is like getting like, because I'm throwing people on their ass and
Yeah.
stuff, but I also get thrown on my ass just as,
Yeah.
and so it's like a nice like. More than I still don't want to like go out there and fight anybody. I might still be very beat upable, but there are some Tuesdays where I'm like, this is crazy. This is going to hurt so bad. Why do I do this? And then it happens. But I did maybe break this a little bit, this finger several months ago.
The ring
Or
finger?
it just kind of hurts,
Yeah.
kind of and rings a little bit. And I did something bad to a toe. So those would be the closest. Other than that, I broke some ribs in like high school.
Have you
damn.
watched? This is just random. Have you watched Joe List's last special?
Oh no, I haven't.
It's pretty funny, but he has a bit about doing jujitsu.
Hell
He's
yeah.
like, the only thing I found out about myself is that I can maintain an erection while a man chokes me out.
That's great.
That's just reminded me of that when you're talking about jujitsu.
I find jujitsu kind of non-erotic.
Yeah.
It's like compartmentalizes my violence focus.
Yeah.
It's in a different bucket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely different bucket.
And then least favorite tattoo of yours?
Oh, least favorite tattoo. I probably like, there are a lot of these tattoos that if you had that same patch of skin and were reconsidering,
That spot.
you wouldn't tattoo that on that spot anymore.
Yeah.
But probably like, so it'd be my first tattoo.
Really?
And it's my most cliche tattoo.
Oh, you got a
because I was
champ stamp?
18 and I was like excited. I think I got like what would be on the short list of like tramp stamps for men.
Yeah.
And it was like 2007.
Yeah.
And I
Newfound
was
Glory was
like,
still kicking.
and I was,
You got barbed
I
wire
wanted
somewhere?
to get into the counterculture.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
close.
skyline?
It's this.
Okay.
It's the compass rose.
I doodled that a lot. I do like those.
Sort of I like it, but it's like one of these things where I'm like,
It's not as bad as like the fake Samoan full
no,
sleeve. You know what I mean?
yeah.
or Chinese letters that
Yeah.
mean something completely different.
Right, yeah. It's like I don't have it, but it's I have like a soft spot for it because it's like it was the first one. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, 18-year-old Nick, what a ride it's been.
It captures the
But
decision
I
making.
wouldn't get, and so that's probably the like worst tattoo on the list.
Hell yeah.
The one that took your tattoo virginity.
Isn't it that way a lot of the time about a lot of virginities though? Like I'm glad I crossed that. I'm glad I crossed that milestone.
Did we have to have Tech 9 playing?
As the empirical rating of how this went. I have this other one that faded a lot. It's this like outsider artist guy,
Oh,
but
that's tight.
But it's right there, and that was funny because that was a guy doing it in his kitchen, and he was wearing a kilt, and his father-in-law was wandering around wearing a kilt, and we were listening to Pantera the whole time. And so they're like, and again, like
Just a bunch
weird
of cowboys from
milestone.
hell.
We were like, okay, like it's cool that's among the list of reasons in my life. And if I had been any older than 21, I probably would have like found myself a different tattooing scenario.
Yeah. And most of them you can remember when and where, why.
Yeah, there's some that I think I just recently I hit like 25, and and I've been getting them since I was 18, so like 15 years or something, 16 years, and so some the order is a little questionable. There's a lot of why is mostly because like I like have a little bit of extra money and I'm like, that looks dope, Yeah. So there isn't a lot of like, I think that's a nice thing. I know a lot of people who care a lot about the time and intention and purpose and meaning of their tattoo collection. And I find that I'd like to typically disavow most of the things I said, thought, or believed on like a rotating of like every 18 months. Yeah. I'm like, what a fucking jackass.
Yeah.
Can we just hit the restart?
That's what's always kept me from doing it is I would have fucking Limp Bizkit tattoos. Or
I dodged. I've had some rules. Like I know to stay away from band tattoos that are like the work of specific artists or makers who are still alive, because like those Vice articles, like, how do you feel about your Marilyn Manson tattoo now? Or even totally. Just like, or even in a less dramatic way, it's like I get Slipknot, when I'm in my like young raucous youth, and then I'm forever being like, well, this is only really Slipknot that consolidates the library of work of self-titled through some of Volume 3, the Subliminal Verses. I'd like to disavow. I haven't kept up, and I don't want to say I'm patently endorsing. Yeah. And then also like, no words.
Yeah.
Because words are like the most ubiquitous and in fact worst communicative tool. Mm-hmm. So like,
interesting.
You pull up like, quotes that you loved and you're like, oh, that guy fucking sucked. Yeah. What a dick. No wonder I had so many problems if I was living with this as one of my unifying mantras. Whoops.
Yeah, there's a bunch of dudes or guys and girls out there with life rips, which is what Chris D'Elia had his fans tattoo on them.
No.
Sex slaves or what?
Yeah, that was
they got a brand.
It was the cult marking. He had a good brand.
Actually, that's one of the things that did come out about him is that he was actually telling women to brand themselves for him.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh,
100%.
Jesus!
But, it's not. I don't always find people who listen to the same like hip hop that I listen to.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I feel like you're into a lot of like the Aesop Rock, Stage Francis.
Yeah.
How did was that like college or what did you? How did
that
you get
was
into that?
Yeah, that was again, so kind of cliche, right? Yeah. But like, so my parents get divorced at the beginning of like freshman year of high school. I get super into new metal. Yeah. We're a couple years behind.
You're speaking Dylan.
We're on the same page.
We're a couple years behind. Yeah. But in Longmont, Colorado, in like the aughts, it was still allowable. Yeah. I assume it was very much the same in rural South Colorado, and so like the down and out kids wearing black, smoking cigarettes in the back of the high school parking lot. Yeah. We're still bumping Korn and Slipknot. This and that.
Around.
I mellowed out a little bit upon discovering marijuana. Yep. I was like, oh, here's this cool. Yeah. And then you get into, from there, it was punk and underground hip hop and alternative hip hop and kind of that world. I remember the first 2 CDs that I bought into that world was Labor Days by Aesop Rock.
Fuck yeah.
And then You Can't Believe How Much Fun We're Having by Atmosphere. Yeah. Those were like the 2 current releases by those guys. And, wound up being more of like a Sevens Travels guy as far as, but getting, way into.
You like got into Anticon and shit like that.
I got super into Anticon.
That's fucking dope, dude.
Anticon I found in college.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those things where I found it. And I was living with these guys who were in like a psychedelic math rock band, so we were like partying our faces off, obviously. But somebody put on Why. Yeah. That Alopecia album had like come out like just the year before. Mm-hmm. And you go, it's like, whoa, I've never heard.
Fucking Dose One.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Green Think and Odd Nosdam and all that. Because I also, like, when I came into college and was, again, liberally pursuing, a extracurricular study of mind chemicals, and so I got super into like dub
That's such
reggae.
a beautiful way of putting it.
Like dub reggae, like King Tubby and Augustus Pablo, and all the really like. Because I was just stoned out of my gourd all the time, rolling up like spliffs with just dumping an eighth into like the bag of Bugler and just like stoned as hell, wandering around for. So I had like a very crunchy first few years of independence, which facilitated all that, like the weird experimental music and. So yeah, it's like I'm always glad it's the overlap of being like, but yeah, so Sage Francis and Aesop Rock and Atmosphere and LP and all of that was like
Did you like Soul?
I did like Soul,
I met Soul at
oh really?
He was one of the organizers of Occupy Denver.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I saw him do like speeches and shit, and like he was like a big
that's
part of it.
wild. That's super cool. Do you know Serengeti?
Yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed him once for like a art magazine up in Fort Collins.
That's dope.
And
So who's on that list that you were talking about?
Which
When you were like, we got to go to this show?
Oh yeah, so Sage Francis is doing a free festival at Live It Pavilion here.
whoa,
It's
when's
on
that?
Should I pull that up?
Yeah, July 13th, I think it is.
Oh, cool.
Maybe it's July 12th. No, it's I have tickets to it.
Yeah, Sage, it was like, and it was so cool, like, and it's funny because when I was young, I used to too. I was like, you'd go through these waves because I get so hyper fixated on things. And so it's sort of like, so I'd consume it so heavily, which was more difficult to do pre-streaming era things. So you'd have to track down new stuff. You're doing like hard drive exchanges and burn discs and data discs, all this shit with people, just the briefcases of CDs.
Yeah.
And so doing all of that. Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude. All the people signed to Strange Famous are going to be there.
Oh, that's so cool.
Wheelchair Sports Camp, which I don't think they are, but they're dope.
Do you know Chesky?
Oh, yeah.
Chesky Ramos? Yeah,
he's dope,
super
dude.
cool. And I love, do you know Armand Hammer?
Yes.
Now? Yeah, I saw them. I came down here and I saw them at High Dive. There's a rap group that has been releasing albums together as Armand Hammer.
Yeah.
For a few years before even, and I love Billy Woods is maybe like my favorite guy currently running, and it seems like he has like cred in like
Every
both
circle.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I love, and again, music is such a like potent thing, especially for being like so moved by it, and not having the fundamental like technical language or attributes to understand.
Were you an Idea fan?
I was, idea and abilities.
Did you
And
cry?
I remember when he passed. I remember actually, so even before I got into all that weird hip hop, the first CD I ever bought myself was Hello Nasty by the Beastie Boys. Okay. Which I think, a lot of people like bring up with a lot of shame their first CDs. And I'm like, I stand by that. So I cried when Idea died and then when MCA died. That was I don't usually. I was sad to see Tom Sizemore go just recently. But usually I think people on the internet perform sorrow at celebrity deaths a little overmuch. I was working at a record store when David Bowie and Prince both died within a short period of each other, and I was like, based on our record sales over the last 6 months. No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. It didn't. This music may have changed your life in that you liked the first Batman movie that Prince soundtracked, but I don't know. I don't know if Prince really saved your life.
Right. Idea was, so dope, dude.
Yeah.
So good.
It's such a crazy, like, nascent community of people, and underground hip hop, again, both from like the writing perspective, but I think about it in the same wheelhouse or realm as comedy
100%.
all the time, because it's this very scrappy thing. It's another where you've made a form that is so simple that it lowers a lot of the economic barriers to entry, and you have people just throwing all kinds of, and it's mostly a for the love of the game thing.
Yeah.
Because it's entirely a war of attrition, and it's something that you
It's
can
underground. There's a reason why it's not mainstream.
and you can feed your whole self to it.
Yep.
or people just burn out or just stop or die tragically.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a bunch of people like who are in it because they really, really care about this craft.
Yeah.
Because you can tell that so much of the rest of the process sucks enough that you better have a good relationship with this thing.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, it's dope, Jizz. I love that. I love that you're into that shit, dude. It's always cool to see because not many people are into that shit, and it's great.
And it's
good
crazy
music.
because you listen to like your music and whatever your music is, and especially like in high school and college, that's some of the firm and fundament of like what your like relationships are like built out of.
Yeah.
And then somehow you make it into adult life, and it's like you're
remember-
like, what the fuck is?
As far as Dylan is concerned, the hero's journey is parents divorced, then new metal, and then into underground hip hop.
Yeah. And then divorced by 30.
Okay, yeah, I skipped that.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like this is like a tie potentially with divorce, not to belittle like a relationship or making people or anything, but it's like I quit drinking when I was 27, and it was it was like the road, and it was one of those like I wasn't quitting drinking because I wanted to like improve my time on the mile, you know. It was one of those, you know, one of those sober comics stalking around.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I feel, and so like sobriety, I would say is a comparable good late 20s life event that is the same sort of stage of transition and
100%.
healing that is also incurring new trauma that I'd say it's like, you know, so I think it's like there's still a juncture point,
Yeah,
you know.
definitely.
Wow.
They're relatives, divorce and sobriety.
Yeah, it's very
They're
close.
oftentimes they're daisy chained too. You find
They're
a lot of
either
people
right connected or the reason one happens over the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like we connected some dots.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, this has been
The
great,
conspiracy
guys.
theory
Yeah, I
that-
felt like we solved some conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Oh, that was fun. Thank you so much, dude.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
This is
thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
Dude.
Let's go. Let's do plugs a little bit.
This is going to come out in 2 weeks.
2
Yes.
weeks.
I always know that my apps are in alphabetical order, and then I always look past C's for my calendar.
I had my first time where somebody tried to book me for a show when I already had a date.
March 31st.
That's a cool feeling.
dope, dude.
And then they said, well, technically Adam Keaton Holland's going to be at this one, and I was going to introduce him because of podcasting stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'll do your show.
You're like, I can change. Your show just won. I think I'm doing like April 21st at the Block Distillery.
Okay.
I think.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if I've got anything for March. Book me for March. You can fill up my March. What if you help me fill up my March?
Hey, you're just marching to the beat of your own drum, you know?
I've been doing a lot of personal work during March.
All right. I got Clyde Comedy at Miller's and Rossi, April 13th. I got Janae Burris headlining, BK Sherrod, Jeff Nelson. Gonna add some more people to that for sure. And then as far as shows that I'm on, April 15th, I'm at the Blue Cactus Room in Pueblo.
Oh, nice.
420.
That lady does your mic, right?
She has a couple times.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I got to hit her up.
Yeah, definitely should. 420, I'm at Western Sky.
Ooh.
I'm going to be opening for Anthony Crawford.
Oh, cool.
That'll be dope, yeah.
Stoner shit.
Let's see.
Hell yeah.
The two of you?
Yeah.
There's going to be a blunt smoked.
Cowtown Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
What's that? March 30th, end of March, beginning of April. I'm going to be there. And I believe I'm going to be on the fucking Winter Park Festival too. So
Nice.
Damn, dude.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Hell yeah.
So-
No festivals over here.
What shows you got, dude?
But
What
I
show
do
you on
have
with ACH.
April 19th, probably Lucy Shambles. And then there's also Imperial on Imperial Brewing.
April 28th?
26th. April 26th.
Oh, I'm doing a different one. April 28th, I'm at Between Two Barrels, but those are both Dead Room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Between two
Nice.
barrels.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Hell yeah. Well, April's looking fun for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Which one is Adam Caden Holland on that you're doing?
Lucy's.
Hell yeah, dude.
That's cool. It's awesome, man.
I'm glad that.
Yeah,
he
and
didn't
just,
say that
you
that
know.
show's not for him.
And Slaughterhouse Studios on YouTube, Spotify, every platform possible. We're there. I need to make a website. It really makes
It's like the next level. It's the
yeah.
yeah.
Well, like I went through a lot of hack or like a lot of scams trying to find healthcare recently. My phone is just fucked with.
I did that once to my poor phone
Yeah.
too. Yeah, they're just
It's-
blowing you out the
I don't need. Yeah, I need it, but not from any of these scammy people. And my decision making for a lot of them was like, do they have a website?
Yeah.
And that makes them real.
Just go to Blue Anthem. Make it easy. Just pick a real one.
Actually, I found I found a plan.
Good. You could
Yeah.
Nice.
probably. I mean, this isn't good pod talk, but you could probably get approved for Medicaid.
I can't. I make too much.
Really?
podcasting is pretty lucrative.
Yeah,
True.
dude.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, all
pretty
that-
lucrative.
All those April show money.
Yeah, yeah. I have way more shows. I just don't want to claim them. So I got a lot of shows. I just don't want to claim them. Follow me at Kick Holland.
Kick Holland on Instagram. Do you
And
have a
Etsy,
separate
right?
page for your art?
I do have a separate page for my art. It's just like Kick Holland _art.
Great.
And I have had an Etsy at various points in time, but again, separate buckets, man. I really enjoy doing the thing, and
Hell yeah.
when it comes to websites or making, I feel like there's this curb appeal quality where I'm like, I'm just making it really challenging for people to give me money, which is just going to create an urgency
give you
Yeah.
for
money.
them to do so.
Yeah.
They're like,
great.
I gotta find that guy and give him a fortune.
Yeah.
That's capitalism.
Fuck yeah. Scarcity. My own
True
scarcity,
Give money to Nick Holland, everybody.
Hell yeah. Recreational outrage. Thank you. Yeah.
Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye.